Chapter 1202. 4 Divine Powers. Chapter 1202. 4 Divine Powers. It was said that in the primordial era, some dragons with heavenly defying bloodlines and shocking talent would trigger universal phenomenons when they awaken their innate divine powers. Initially, in the eyes of the dragons, this was only a legend. After all, even Long Tsong, who possessed the bloodline of a 5-clawed divine dragon, did not cause such a stir when he awakened his innate divine powers. But now the dragons witnessed this legend personally. Above the firmaments, the clouds split apart and a gigantic menacing dragon head appeared slowly, looking down at the Dragonbone Valley with a rampant might. Although the dragon head was not corporeal and was merely a phantom, every dragon could feel a tremendous pressure. Some dragons could not withstand it and knelt down. Only some of the dragon elders present could remain standing. How strong was the divine power to be able to cause the world to tremble and send down phenomenons after its awakening? More importantly, the awakening of the second divine power also meant that Su Zimo's body and bloodline would undergo another transformation. True enough. The power of divine powers spread and Su Zimo's bloodline rumbled, as though raging tides were surging through his body. Coupled with the awakening of his innate divine powers and the infusion of the ancestral dragon Qi, Su Zimo's body and bloodline had evolved 3 times after he entered the Dharma characteristic realm. This change could be considered as a complete transformation of his body. Many dragons were envious of such an opportunity. Good. Long Tsong nodded repeatedly. There was no hint of jealousy or fear in his eyes. Instead, his fighting spirit intensified. It was only now that he truly stopped underestimating Su Zimo, and regarded the latter as a supreme opponent that could match him. Elder Scorpion remained silent with a dark expression. The more outstanding Su Zimo's performance was, the higher his status in the dragon race and the harder it would be for him to attack this lad. Initially, he merely wanted to watch the hype. The best scenario would be if Su Zimo failed the baptism and he would be able to relax. To think that the situation would develop beyond his expectations. Or rather, nobody expected this. After entering the Dharma characteristic realm, 2 divine powers were awakened consecutively. This was rare even in the primordial era when the primordial 9 races ruled over Tianhuang mainland. The fortune of this generation's dragon race is way too strong. Elder Scorpion narrowed his eyes and thought to himself, apart from the birth of a 5-clawed divine dragon, there's now another monster incarnate. Should I step in to kill him? A cold glint flashed through Elder Scorpion's eyes and he wanted to kill. However, he knew in his heart that with so many dragon elders present, it was impossible for him to kill Su Zimo silently. Once he attacked, it would be difficult for him to escape unscathed as well. To pay with my life for the sake of a Dharma characteristic dragon. Elder Scorpion's expression was dark as he contemplated countermeasures while weighing the pros and cons. In a cave far away. The 2 Grand Elders looked pleased. The Illumination Dragon Grand Elder lamented. The awakening of a divine power caused the world to tremble and a phenomenon to descend. It's been many years since something like that has happened. Now that this lad has obtained the recognition of the ancestral dragon Qi, our guess should be rather close. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder said excitedly, the dragon race is flourishing in this generation. What lad? The Illumination Dragon Grand Elder glared at the Blue Dragon Grand Elder and corrected him with a stern expression. We have to address him as young master from now on as well. Why yes. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder did not resist or refute. Instead, he agreed with a smile. Although Su Zimo had yet to fight against Long Tsong, the 2 elders knew that there was no doubt about who the young master of the dragon race would be. Furthermore, the status of this young master of the dragon race was above them. Or rather, it was above the entire dragon race. The Illumination Dragon Grand Elder was older and pondered for a moment before reminding, this is a serious matter. It's enough that you and I know about it. We must not spread it. The young master has yet to grow to his peak. If his identity is exposed, it might cause panic among the other races and he might get killed. Humph. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder said coldly, who would dare to touch our young master in the Dragonbone Valley? No matter what, it's never wrong to be careful. The Illumination Dragon Grand Elder sighed gently. Don't forget the battle of the primordial era. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder fell silent at the mention of that battle. A moment later, Their gazes returned to the ancestral dragon divine pillar. At that moment, Su Zimo was almost done with the baptism of the second divine power. The blue dragon Grand Elder frowned slightly and pointed into the distance. What's up with those witches? Why are they in our Dragon Bone Valley? Wu Xie. The Illumination Dragon Grand Elder murmured softly. What is he doing here? The Grand Elders of the 5 lineages were almost always in seclusion all the time to recuperate. Unless something major happened, they would not be disturbed. The death of the young master of the witch race in Su Zimo's hands was not made known to the 2 Grand Elders yet. Beneath the ancestral dragon divine pillar, Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief and was delighted. Some of the Dragon Elders guessed correctly. The second divine power he awakened came from the ancestral dragon Qi. To think that there would be such a benefit to receiving the baptism of the ancestral dragon divine pillar. Su Zimo muttered to himself. If any other dragon heard that, they would probably vomit blood from anger. The power of divine powers tempered his body once more, and his body and bloodline had already transformed to a brand new realm. Every single move he made was filled with immense strength. Su Zimo nodded to himself as he contemplated the obscurity of the second divine power. The divine power was known as the ancestral dragon divine pillar. Using the bloodline of an ancestral dragon as a medium, it gathered the qi of the dragon race and summoned a divine pillar. It could suppress fortune and the 10,000 races. It was extremely powerful. Right then, Su Zimo's heart stirred. He remembered something. Now that he was at the Dharma characteristic realm, what else was there to the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness? Instinctively, he looked within his consciousness. True enough. Something had already happened within his consciousness. 4 fist-sized balls of light surrounded his essence spirit. It was impossible to tell what was within each ball of light. However, every single ball of light emitted an extremely terrifying aura that caused even Su Zimo's heart to skip a beat. At the same time, a familiar voice sounded in Su Zimo's consciousness. Su Zimo was stunned when he heard that voice. A strong sense of longing surged in his heart and his expression turned gentle. That was Dai Yu's voice. Su Zimo would never be able to forget it. After the Yang Spirit section, there's a 10th section of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, and that's the divine power section. It's difficult to record divine powers in words, and there are no cultivation techniques. They can only be passed down through memories. Dai Yu's voice was still indifferent and calm as water. If you can reach this point, you will naturally be able to hear those words. If you can't, it's useless even if I tell you beforehand. It will only add to your troubles and obsession. There are 4 divine powers in the divine power section that correspond to the Dharma characteristic, conjoint body, Mahayana and tribulation transcendence realms. You can only comprehend a divine power when your cultivation realm is high enough. The statement came to an end at that point. It was left behind by Dai Yu beforehand. In fact, if Su Zimo had not cultivated to the Dharma characteristic realm, he would not have even heard those words. Chapter 1203, Attack of Wu Xie. Chapter 1203, Attack of Wu Xie. If I'm not wrong, these should be the 4 divine powers recorded in the divine power section. Su Zimo looked at the 4 mysterious balls of light that revolved around his essence spirit in his consciousness. It was only now that the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness was truly revealed. Initially, only 8 demon kings were formed after he cultivated to the Yang Spirit section. If the 4 mysterious balls of light meant that there were 4 demon kings, there would be a total of 12 including the previous 8. Just as he was pondering, one of the balls of light in his consciousness shattered. Within, a palm-sized divine turtle appeared. It was extremely sentient and floated in an ocean, looking at Su Zimo motionlessly. The moment Su Zimo met with the divine turtle's gaze, his mind buzzed. A mysterious realization gradually flowed through his heart. After entering the Dharma characteristic realm, the first divine power of the divine power section was dispelled. The divine power came from one of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, the sea-calming turtle. In the vast wilderness, there was a desolate ocean. Among them, a true dragon reigned supreme and was invincible, known as the Desolate Ocean Dragon King. In the depths of the endless desolate ocean, there was a spirit turtle that was much older than the desolate ocean dragon king. Normally, the spirit turtle hid in the depths of the desolate ocean in silence. However, once it appeared, even the desolate ocean dragon king would not be able to cause much of a stir. Through the gaze of the sea-calming turtle, Xueqi gradually recalled some of the legends about the vast wilderness. It was like a memory inheritance. Through the gaze of the spirit turtle, there was not only the legacy of those legends, but also a divine power. Xueqi stood motionlessly beneath the stone pillar with his eyes closed. All of a sudden, an extremely terrifying energy fluctuation burst forth from his body and was released. The dragons widened their eyes in shock and disbelief. That was the power of divine powers. Xueqi, who had just awakened 2 divine powers, had a 3rd divine power burst forth from his body. Furthermore, the aura of that divine power seemed to be even more terrifying than the first 2. If the dragons were shocked when Xueqi awakened his 2nd divine power, by the time the 3rd divine power descended, the world was silent. The scene before them had completely exceeded their understanding. The dragons held their breaths and focused, merely looking at the figure beneath the stone pillar with widened mouths. Their expressions were filled with extreme shock, and their eyes could not help but reveal a hint of reverence. A 3rd divine power has awakened. In the cave, the 2 grand elders shuddered and were dumbfounded. Even with their experience, they could not understand such a situation, let alone the other dragons. A large shadow shrouded the top of the Dragon Bone Valley. Boom, 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 boom. Stomping on the Dragon Bone Valley like 4 heavenly piercing pillars, every single step caused the ground to quake and the weather to change. The dragons looked up instinctively. A spirit turtle with an ancient aura was carrying a gigantic and heavy turtle shell on its back. Walking over slowly, it looked like a god. The gigantic malevolent phantom of the ancestral dragon that appeared when Xueqi awakened his 2nd divine power had yet to dissipate completely from within the clouds above the firmaments. After the spirit turtle descended, the phantom of the ancestral dragon cried tragically and dissipated instantly. It could not defend against it at all. This. Some of the dragons were so shocked that they could no longer speak. Look! A dragon pointed to the foot of a spirit turtle not far away. There was a gigantic pit. This was an actual pit created by the phenomenon of the spirit turtle after Xueqi awakened his divine powers. The ancestral dragon phenomenon that descended when his 2nd divine power was awakened was merely a phantom. However, that spirit turtle was completely corporeal. This meant that the 3rd divine power that was awakened might be even more terrifying than the 2nd divine power of the ancestral dragon's inheritance. At that moment, a pair of sinister eyes were hidden among the dragons. Initially, Elder Scorpion was still hesitant. However, when he saw Xueqi awaken his 3rd divine power, he made up his mind to attack. He had to kill Long Zhu. This lad was way too terrifying. Of course, Elder Scorpion did not dare to attack brazenly either. He merely activated the secret skill of the witch race in secret, and released a wisp of imperceptible spirit consciousness that silently pierced into Xueqi's consciousness. At that moment, there were many dragon elders present. However, the attention of those dragons were drawn in by the terrifying gigantic spirit turtle in the firmaments, and did not notice Elder Scorpion's actions at all. At the same time, in a cave far away, the Blue Dragon Grand Elder felt emotional and lamented. Young Master's potential is way too terrifying. The Illumination Dragon Grand Elder nodded as well. That's right. Furthermore, the young Master has many secrets on him. There might be even more than we imagined. All of a sudden, the 2 Grand Elders seemed to have sensed something and their expressions changed. Wu Xie, how dare you! Without hesitation, the 2 Grand Elders roared and vanished from the spot, descending above the ancestral dragon divine pillar. Although Wu Xie's actions were obscure and could deceive the other dragon elders, it could not deceive the 2 Grand Elders. However, even if the 2 Grand Elders sensed it and wanted to stop it, it was already too late. They truly had not expected Wu Xie to be so audacious as to attack a dragon in the Dragon Bone Valley. When he heard the roars of the 2 Grand Elders of the dragon race, Elder Scorpion sneered internally. The moment he attacked Xueqi, he had already torn a major transference talisman in his palm. If Xueqi were to die and he used the major transference talisman to escape, Even the 2 Grand Elders of the dragon race would not be able to capture him. As for the other witches that followed him, it did not matter even if they died in the Dragon Bone Valley. It did not matter if some people from the witch race were compensated to be able to kill such a monster incarnate of the dragon race. His wisp of spirit consciousness had already entered Su Zimo's consciousness and transformed into a figure that was identical to him. Elder Scorpion was shocked when he saw the phenomenon in Su Zimo's consciousness. Even with his cultivation, he felt shudders in the consciousness against the 3 balls of light. At that moment, Su Zimo's essence spirit was meeting the spirit turtle's gaze. It was receiving its inheritance and did not notice the danger at all. Fufu, so what if you're a monster incarnate? Pay with your life. The spirit consciousness sneered and was about to attack. All of a sudden, in the consciousness, the spirit turtle that was floating silently at the side turned around and looked at Elder Scorpion's spirit consciousness with a cold gaze. Roar! Opening its mouth, the spirit turtle let out a deafening roar at Elder Scorpion's spirit consciousness. Boom! The spirit consciousness conjured by Elder Scorpion dissipated instantly. Not only that, even Elder Scorpion in the crowd was shocked and grunted. He felt a sharp pain in his essence spirit and almost fainted. Elder Scorpion realized that his essence spirit was already injured. What was that? He cursed internally. How could there be such a terrifying spirit being in Longzhu's consciousness that could sense killing intent and attack him? At that moment, the 2 Grand Elders of the Illumination Dragon and Blue Dragon lineages arrived. Elder Scorpion had already torn the major transference talisman preemptively and a gigantic pitch-black dimensional tear appeared behind him. Chapter 1204. How dare you? Chapter 1204. How dare you? Actually, when the 2 Grand Elders descended above the ancestral dragon divine pillar, they realized that they were a step too late and could not save Su Zimo in time. Both of them were shocked and furious. After clarifying their guesses, Su Zimo's life was even more important than theirs. But now, an outsider had attempted to kill their young master right under their noses in the Dragon Bone Valley. That was akin to touching their reverse scale. However, a strange scene happened the moment the 2 Grand Elders appeared. Beneath the stone pillar, Su Zimo was still motionless. His eyes were closed as he continued to comprehend his divine powers, seemingly unaffected. On the contrary, Wu Xie who attacked Su Zimo grunted dully with a change in expression, as though he was severely injured. Initially, Wu Xie wanted to tear the major transference talisman and was about to be teleported away. However, he was delayed for a moment due to the stagger of his body. The entire process happened in a flash. The 2 Grand Elders did not have time to think about the reason behind this and made a prompt decision to attack right away. Where can you run to? The Illumination Dragon Grand Elder harumphed coldly and 2 scorching beams of light shot out from his eyes. They were extremely fast and shot towards Elder Scorpion instantly. However, the major transference talisman was already shattered. A gigantic pitch-black crack appeared behind Elder Scorpion and he leaped into it, disappearing. The 2 blazing beams of light shot into the dark and cold crack without causing any ripples. The gigantic crack closed rapidly. Once the crack closed and space was restored, the 2 Grand Elders would not be able to capture Elder Scorpion even if they had divine powers. Unless they killed their way into the Ghost Curse Tomb. You want to escape after coming to my Dragon Bone Valley to kill? The Blue Dragon Grand Elder was enraged and extended his arm from dozens of feet away. A menacing gigantic dragon claw appeared and reached into the crack. Elder Scorpion made use of the dimensional tear to avoid the fatal attack of the Illumination Dragon Grand Elder, and thought to himself that he was lucky. Before he could catch his breath, he felt a strong sense of danger. Immediately after, a menacing claw descended from the darkness and grabbed him. Against that claw, his body was like paper and was penetrated instantly, causing blood to flow. There was no race that could defend against the sharpest claws of the dragon race with their bodies. Furthermore, among the primordial 9 races, the witch race had the weakest physique. Ah! Elder Scorpion let out a tragic cry. In the void, just as the gigantic pitch-black crack was about to close, the Blue Dragon Grand Elder yanked Elder Scorpion out. A few bloodied holes appeared on Elder Scorpion's body. Dark green blood flowed out slowly with a nauseating stench. The dragon claw of the blue dragon Grand Elder had already pierced through Elder Scorpion's body. His tendons and bones were broken and his organs were completely destroyed. Conjoint body mighty figures had boundless dermic powers and could regrow severed limbs. An injury as such was not fatal for Elder Scorpion. However, he had fallen completely into the hands of the blue dragon Grand Elder and his vitals were pierced. His blood chi was deteriorating and it was impossible for him to break free. The blue dragon Grand Elder pinched this conjoint body realm expert of the witch race as though he was carrying a weak chick. Cough. Elder Scorpion's face was frightfully pale as he spat out mouthfuls of blood. He cursed internally. If the mysterious spirit turtle in Su Zimo's consciousness had not roared and caused a backlash to his essence spirit, causing it to pause for a moment, even the blue dragon Grand Elder would not have been able to capture him. He would have most likely returned to the ghost curse tomb by now. Many dragons were stunned and did not know what happened. A Grand Elder of the dragon race would not appear so easily. But now, two of them had appeared at the same time with a murderous intent. Furthermore, Elder Scorpion caused the two Grand Elders to attack at the same time. It was clear how furious they were. The witches were even trembling in fear. None of them were fools. They had witnessed the scene of Elder Scorpion tearing the major transference talisman. It was clear that Elder Scorpion wanted to abandon them and escape alone. If Elder Scorpion were to escape, their fates would be imaginable against the wrath of the dragon race experts. "How dare you!" the blue dragon Grand Elder hollered. That single casual statement from him contained the shock of a dragon roar. Although Wu Xie was a conjoint body expert, he was severely injured and his blood chi was weak. He still felt a sharp pain in his ears and his features were contorted. If that was the case for Wu Xie, it was even worse for the other witches. Oh. The remaining 10-odd witches cried tragically and their eardrums were pierced. All of them fell to the ground with pained expressions, curled up as green blood oozed from their ears. The two Grand Elders were truly enraged. "I wonder what I did to provoke the killing intent of the Grand Elders of the dragon race." Elder Scorpion grit his teeth and asked slowly. "You're asking the obvious." The blue dragon Grand Elder sneered. "How dare you attack the young master of the dragon race in the Dragon Bone Valley? You truly don't know what's good for you." The young master of the dragon race. The dragons were slightly stunned when they heard that. However, the dragons did not think too much about it, and merely thought that it was a slip of the tongue from the enraged blue dragon Grand Elder. He should be referring to the young master of the Illumination Dragon lineage. Foo. Elder Scorpion chuckled and quibbled. "What a joke. Look at Long Zhu. Is he injured at all? Can he still be alive if I had attacked him?" It was extremely easy for a conjoint body expert to attack an unguarded dragon who had just advanced to the Dharma characteristic realm. However, at that moment, Su Zimo was still standing beneath the ancestral dragon divine pillar and comprehending his divine powers without being affected. This was truly strange. The two Grand Elders were puzzled as well. The strangest thing was that after Elder Scorpion attacked, he seemed to have received an impact and was injured instead. Although they were puzzled, what sort of characters were the two Grand Elders? They were all decisive to kill and were completely unmoved. The Illumination Dragon Grand Elder had white hair. However, his eyes were burning with rage as he said coldly, "Do you think that such words can protect your life? Let me tell you clearly that it's lucky that Long Zhu is fine today. If anything happens to him, the dragon race will definitely wage war against the witch race at all costs." Everyone could hear the killing intent in the tone of the Illumination Dragon Grand Elder. A thought flashed through the minds of the dragons. If anything happened to Long Zhu, the dragon race would truly wage war at all costs. However, what the dragons did not understand was that even though Long Zhu was the young master of the Illumination Dragon lineage, the two Grand Elders seemed to be way too emotional. "Don't kill me!" Elder Scorpion was truly flustered. He could clearly sense that the two Grand Elders of the dragon race were truly bent on killing him. In that life and death moment, his mind raced and a thought flashed through his mind as he said hurriedly, "I can trade a secret for my life." "What secret? I don't want to know at all." The blue dragon Grand Elder sneered with a disdainful expression. In his opinion, This was merely Elder Scorpion's final struggle. Elder Scorpion said word by word, "You must want to know. Furthermore, this secret concerns the safety of the primordial 9 races. If you kill me, you dragons will definitely regret it." Chapter 1205. Not even a single hair. Chapter 1205. Not even a single hair. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder frowned slightly and hesitated. He could tell that Elder Scorpion did not sound like he was lying. What could have happened that would affect the safety of the primordial 9 races? The Illumination Dragon Grand Elder said indifferently, "Why not listen to him? I want to see what secrets he can reveal. Elders, you have to give me a promise to spare my life." Elder Scorpion's gaze was dark as he grit his teeth. "Otherwise, I won't tell you even if I die." "We'll have to see what you can say if you want to live," the Blue Dragon Grand Elder sneered. Elder Scorpion said in a deep voice, "Don't worry, this secret is enough to trade my life." "All right." The Illumination Dragon Grand Elder nodded. "Don't worry, as long as the secret you reveal can move us, we'll let you live." When he heard that, Elder Scorpion's spirit consciousness moved. Suddenly, a black scale flew out from his storage bag. When they saw the scale, the 2 Grand Elders of the dragon race were slightly stunned and looked confused. But soon, the 2 of them seemed to have thought of something and their hearts skipped a beat. Their expressions changed and their eyes were filled with disbelief. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder released his grip and without even looking at Elder Scorpion who was on the ground, he held the black scale at his fingertip and focused. "Pest!" he gasped. There was no mistake about the scale's appearance and the aura it emanated. The pupils of the Illumination Dragon Grand Elder constricted slightly with a bewildered expression. The 2 Grand Elders could tell that the scale could not be from the primordial era. Otherwise, the aura on it would have dissipated long ago. The scale looked like it had just fallen off and was relatively tender. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder flipped his palm. Apart from the 2 Grand Elders, the other dragons did not manage to make out what it was. This was no small matter, and it was inconvenient for outsiders to know about it unless they knew the exact situation. "What's going on?" The Blue Dragon Grand Elder glared at Elder Scorpion on the ground and asked sternly. "The 2 of you can't recognize it?" Elder Scorpion asked instead with a mocking expression. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder took a deep breath. "A bloodline of it is still alive." Elder Scorpion said slowly, "That's right. As you can see, it has already returned in this generation." The other dragons were confused, but the 2 Grand Elders knew the seriousness of the matter. Elder Scorpion continued, "Don't blame me for not reminding you guys, but it's growing. Right now, it should be at the Void Reversion or Dharma characteristic realm. Once it grows up, hee. He gave a strange laugh and did not continue. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder pondered for a moment before asking again, "How can I be certain that this is true? Isn't it too hasty to judge based on a single scale?" "If you don't believe me, there's nothing I can do either." Elder Scorpion said, "This time round, if it wasn't by chance, I wouldn't have been able to discover its tracks. If I'm not wrong, Goose Sect was destroyed by it." It was easy to verify the matter. As long as one were to take a look at Goose Sect's mountain gate, they would know if it was true. "How?" Elder Scorpion asked. "It's enough to trade my life for the secret, right?" This time round, the 2 Grand Elders remained silent. That secret was way too shocking. It would be worth it even if Elder Scorpion was spared 100 or even 1,000 times for it. "Leave." The Blue Dragon Grand Elder waved his hand and threw the scale to Wu Xie. Elder Scorpion was delighted, but he maintained his composure and grinned. "Thank you for your kindness, Grand Elder." Immediately, Elder Scorpion turned slightly and growled, "Help me, let's go." It was only then that the remaining witches reacted and advanced one after another, helping the severely injured Scorpion Elder up. They summoned their spirit vessels and sped out of the Dragon Bone Valley, not daring to linger for a moment. That was not the only reason why the 2 Grand Elders chose to release Elder Scorpion. It was also because Su Zimo was safe and sound. If Su Zimo were to die, the 2 Grand Elders would not give Elder Scorpion the chance to reveal the secret in their wrath. What Elder Scorpion said was way too terrifying. Even after Elder Scorpion left, The two Grand Elders remained silent with grim expressions. In that short period of time, Su Zimo had already finished comprehending his divine powers. As the inheritance divine power ended, the spirit turtle that he was looking at in his consciousness vanished as well. There were only 3 balls of light left in his consciousness. Su Zimo could not see what was within, and neither did he know which demon king the 3 balls of light corresponded to. He opened his eyes and snapped out of his stupor only to discover 2 old men with long beards standing in the air, frowning in deep thoughts with grim expressions. The other dragons were mostly confused. As for Elder Scorpion and the others of the witch race, they had already vanished. Earlier on, he was comprehending his divine powers and was unaware of everything that happened. Although he was done comprehending the divine powers, the body tempering process was not over yet. Su Zimo awakened his 3rd divine power. Now, his body and bloodline underwent another transformation. This meant that he endured 4 transformation processes after he advanced to the Dharma characteristic realm. This was a true complete transformation. At that moment, even Long Tsong felt waves of pressure. Even when Su Zimo awakened his 2nd divine power, Long Tsong was 70% confident that he could suppress Su Zimo. At that moment, he was not even confident of success. Of course, the more that was the case, the more excited he was. He was not afraid of failure. He was afraid that no one would be able to defeat him. We've got to think about this matter at length. Let's take a mental note of it first. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder sent a voice transmission to the Illumination Dragon Grand Elder. Yes. The Illumination Dragon Grand Elder nodded and looked at Su Zimo beneath the Ancestral Dragon Divine Pillar. If Long Zhu can awaken his true bloodline and revert to his true form, he might be able to fight it. That's right. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder said, however, we don't know where the opportunity for Long Zhu to awaken his bloodline will be. Pausing for a moment, the Blue Dragon Grand Elder suddenly frowned. Surveying his surroundings, he asked loudly, what was the witch race doing here? Neither of them knew why Wu Xie was in the Dragon Bone Valley yet. The Horned Dragon Elder, Long Zhong, recounted how Su Zimo killed the young master of the witch race and another witch thereafter. Finally, he said, this matter started because of Long Zhu. Wu Xie wanted an explanation. Later on, under our persistence, he asked Long Zhu to sever his arm to resolve the matter. Long Zhong's statement was somewhat exaggerated and was even veering towards tattling. Illumination Dragon Elder 4 frowned when he heard that, but he did not know how to refute. After all, what Long Zhong said was the truth. Sever his own arm, sever his own arm. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder had a dark expression and grit his teeth. Long Zhong could not guess the thoughts of the Blue Dragon Grand Elder and continued, to think that this lad would ignore the big picture completely and was not willing to sever his arm. Sever your head. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder could no longer hold it in and cursed. He charged in front of Long Zhong and smacked his head with a huge slap. Who gave you permission to sever his arm? Who gave you permission to sever his arm? Each time he said that, the Blue Dragon Grand Elder would give Long Zhong a tight slap. Right in front of everyone, Long Zhong was beaten silly with a helpless expression. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder said angrily, he cannot lose even a single hair, let alone an arm. Chapter 1206, Peak Battle. Chapter 1206, Peak Battle. Long Zhong was not the only one stunned by the few slaps. Even the dragons were dumbfounded and there was an uproar. No matter what, Long Zhong was one of the elders of the Horned Dragon lineage and had a noble status. The Grand Elder of the 5 lineages had an extraordinary status in the clan, and ignored worldly affairs. There had never been a time when they were furious enough to punish an elder for the sake of a junior. They left zero dignity for Long Zhong. As the young master of the Blue Dragon lineage, Long Tsong had not seen the Blue Dragon Grand Elder stand up for him. What puzzled the dragons the most was that this was not a big deal to begin with. Even if Long Zhu had lost an arm, there was no need for an elder to be beaten this badly, right? What did the Grand Elder mean by that? Can't lose even a single strand of hair. Isn't that way too protective of Long Zhu? I think so too. The 2 Grand Elders are acting a little overly extreme. The dragons discussed softly. Long Zhong's face was flushed red. It was unknown whether it was due to the slaps or embarrassment, but his blood surged as he straightened his neck and shouted, "I respect you as the Blue Dragon Grand Elder, but I want to know what rights you have to slap me." Even Su Zimo was shocked, let alone Long Zhong, who was beaten up. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder said coldly, "You wanted the young master of our race to sever his arm to resolve this matter. Do you think you deserve a beating?" "Ha!" Long Zhong laughed in anger instead. "Grand Elder, you must be joking. The dragon race's grand ceremony has yet to be held, and Long Zhu is only the young master of the Illumination Dragon lineage. He's not the young master of our 5 lineages. His body isn't so precious that we can't even touch him. If I say that he's the young master of the dragon race, he is." The Blue Dragon Grand Elder asked expressionlessly, "Are you unconvinced?" "I'm not the only one. Our clansmen have witnessed everything. Who among them is convinced? The young master of the dragon race is no small matter. How can we be so casual about it?" Long Zhong was fearless as well and said in a deep voice, "Long Tsong possesses the bloodline of a 5-clawed divine dragon, and yet he has to wait till the dragon race's grand ceremony to be conferred the title of young master. What rights does Long Zhu have?" Indeed, as Long Zhong had said, most of the dragons were indignant. How long had Su Zimo been in the dragon race for? At most it was less than 10 years. In terms of emotions, most of the dragons leaned towards Long Tsong. Although Su Zimo had also awakened the dragon chi of 5 lineages and 3 divine powers when he entered the Dharma characteristic realm, his bloodline was impure after all. He could not even conjure his true form as a dragon. Strictly speaking, he was not even a true dragon. How could someone like that become the young master of the dragon race? As for Long Tsong, he possessed the bloodline of a 5-clawed divine dragon and was a king among the dragon race. It was clear who was qualified. Right then, Long Tsong stood up slowly and glared at Su Zimo with a sharp gaze with a raring battle intent. "If you want to become the young master of our race, you've got to defeat me first." At that moment, the tempering of Su Zimo's body by his 3rd divine power had already ended. He awakened 3 divine powers and underwent 4 transformations. At that moment, Su Zimo felt that every single inch of his flesh was filled with a terrifying power that was about to spew out, seeking an outlet. He no longer had the danger of losing his arm and was in no hurry to fight Long Tsong. However, he had just broken through and wanted to find a true opponent to fight to his heart's content. Among his peers, the only one who could fight him was Long Tsong. "As you wish." Su Zimo was fearless as well. "Let's head to the Dragon Blood battlefield." "All right." Long Tsong's gaze shone brightly as he agreed without hesitation. "Long Zhu, you've just entered the Dharma characteristic realm and are unfamiliar with the power of the Dharma characteristic realm. As such, you might not be familiar with the use of divine powers." The Illumination Dragon Grand Elder said, "Why don't the 2 of you fight to your heart's content during the ceremony?" "That's right." Before Su Zimo could reply, Long Tsong nodded. "You're right, Grand Elder. I was a little anxious." Long Tsong's honesty left a good impression on Su Zimo. Su Zimo smiled gently and waved his hand. "There's no need. I'll use our fight to familiarize myself with the powers of the Dharma characteristic realm and comprehend the divine powers. Confidence, pride and arrogance." This was equivalent to using a 5-clawed divine dragon as a whetstone. "All right." Long Tsong no longer pushed back and leaped onto the Dragon Blood battlefield. The 2 Grand Elders exchanged glances and shook their heads helplessly. However, both of them smiled right after, feeling relieved. It was already a great fortune for the dragon race to have any one of the 2 monster incarnates. The most rare thing was that these 2 monster incarnates of the dragon race were open and honest without any scheming plots or connivery. No matter who won this battle, the rise of the dragon race was inevitable. "Seems like the grand ceremony is about to be brought forward," the Illumination Dragon Grand Elder said with a smile. "In my opinion, there's no time like the present. Let's do it today." The Blue Dragon Grand Elder said in a deep voice, "The most important thing in the grand ceremony of the clan is to be conferred the title of the young master of the dragon race. One of them will definitely win today, and that person will be the young master of the dragon race. All right, let's get the other 3 old fogies out here." The Illumination Dragon Grand Elder nodded in agreement. The two Grand Elders reared their heads and howled. A high-pitched dragon roar sounded, piercing through metal and cracking rocks and spreading to every corner of the Dragon Bone Valley. Roar! After a brief pause, 3 dragon roars echoed from 3 corners of the Dragon Bone Valley, matching the howls of the 2 elders. In the blink of an eye, another 3 old men appeared in midair. They were the Grand Elders of the horned, winged and hornless dragon lineages who were initially in seclusion. The Grand Elders of all 5 lineages were gathered. What's going on? The winged dragon Grand Elder frowned slightly and looked at the 2 figures in the dragon blood battlefield. Why? Is there finally someone who dares to challenge Long Tsong? There's no need to alarm us for a battle with a predetermined outcome, right? The horned dragon Grand Elder was confused. The 3 Grand Elders had yet to meet Su Zimo, let alone recognize him. Fufu, predetermined outcome. The Illumination Dragon Grand Elder rolled his eyes and pointed at Su Zimo's back view. How about a bet? I'll bet on him winning. He continued with a smile. If I win, old Xiao, the mystic flame bead that you obtained 50,000 years ago will belong to me. I'm not betting. The horned dragon Grand Elder shuddered and shook his head instinctively. Although he did not know who Su Zimo was, the 5 of them knew one another way too well. When he saw the sly smile on the Illumination Dragon Grand Elder's face, he knew that there was definitely something going on. The hornless Dragon Grand Elder smiled and asked, "Tell me, what's up with your mysterious behavior?" The Blue Dragon Grand Elder sent a voice transmission and recounted everything simply. Even his speculation with the Illumination Dragon Grand Elder was revealed. For real? When the 3 Grand Elders heard that, they could not contain their emotions and exclaimed instinctively. Let's see. The Illumination Dragon Grand Elder pointed at the Dragon Blood battlefield. This battle might prove our guess. Chapter 1207, Battle Commencement. Chapter 1207, Battle Commencement. In the Dragon Blood battlefield, Su Zimo and Long Tsong were already facing one another. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder declared, "Although we can fight to the death in the Dragon Blood battlefield without any reservations, both of you are paragons of our race. It's our loss to see any of you die." Many Dragon Elders nodded in agreement. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder continued, "You can fight to your heart's content in this battle, but you must not use your Essence Spirit secret skills. A fight between Essence Spirits was the most dangerous and one could die at any moment. At that time, they might not even be able to save either one of them in time. With the regeneration capabilities of the dragon race's bloodline, one's body could recover if they were injured. If worse came to worst, there was still an utmost treasure like the primordial divine spring." "That's for sure." Long Tsong nodded. "Victory has to be decided in my battle with Long Zhu, not life and death." Su Zimo smiled and nodded as well. Illumination Dragon Elder 4 and the others heaved a sigh of relief. If the Blue Dragon Grand Elder did not mention it, they would have stood out and stopped the 2 of them from using their Essence Spirit secret skills as well. While the Blue Dragon Grand Elders and the others did not know it, they had witnessed the might of Reverse Scale personally. Even the young master of the witch race was killed by this Essence Spirit secret skill. Although Long Tsong was a 5-clawed divine dragon, it was unknown if he could defend against it. Suddenly, Long Zhong said, "Long Zhu has another dermic art that can't be used either." "What?" The Grand Elders were surprised and asked instinctively. Long Zhong said, "Long Zhu learned a dermic art from somewhere that can reduce one's lifespan." The Horned Dragon Grand Elder frowned slightly. What's wrong with reducing one's lifespan? Although such a dermic art is rare, it's not that scary. Long Zhong shook his head. Long Zhu's dermic art is different. The effect of this dermic art ignores the other party's cultivation realm. The expressions of the 5 Grand Elders changed slightly. Ignore one's cultivation realm. You mean to say that our lifespans will be reduced if he releases this dermic art on us? The Horned Dragon Grand Elder asked, still in disbelief. That's right. Long Zhong nodded hurriedly. That's not all. The lifespan reduction of his dermic art is irreversible. No matter how one recuperates in the future, there's no way of recovering the lost lifespan. The 5 Grand Elders exchanged glances. That was a little scary. Was there such a domineering Dharmic art in this world? However, all 5 of them felt relieved at the thought of Su Zimo's bloodline. Long Zhong did not notice it still and was prepared to strike while the iron was hot. He instigated, if our other clansmen can cultivate such a powerful Dharmic art as well, the strength of our race will definitely increase significantly. He did not say that it was his own selfish reasons. Instead, he expressed it as though he was selfless and was considering it for the sake of the dragon race and their fellow clansmen completely. Long Zhong continued with sadness. I tried to persuade Long Zhu to hand over that Dharmic art out of goodwill. Unexpectedly, he rejected me without caring about the interests of the dragon race. The 5 Grand Elders looked grim. Long Zhong was secretly delighted when he saw that. He thought that the 5 Grand Elders were angered because Su Zimo was hiding something. Long Zhong prepped himself and continued. This lad is not grateful for our race taking him in at all. He won't even hand over a Dharmic art. He doesn't even treat us as his clansmen. That was a serious accusation. Many dragons were moved by his words and whispered among themselves. In the dragon blood battlefield, Long Tsong frowned and said in a deep voice, since that Dharmic art belongs to Long Zhu, he can hand it over if he wants to. If he doesn't want to, so be it. Elder, there's no need to accuse him of anything. Su Zimo had a calm expression and was indifferent towards the matter, merely waiting for the attitude of the 5 Grand Elders. The Horned Dragon Grand Elder had a dark expression as he looked at Long Zhong and asked slowly, You were the one who asked him to hand over the Dharmic art? That's right. Long Zhong nodded hurriedly. Piak. The moment he said that, a crisp sound rang. A red palm print had already appeared on Long Zhong's face. The Horned Dragon Grand Elder attacked and slapped Long Zhong viciously, saying hatefully, Who gave you the right? Piak. It was another slap. What rights do you have to claim a Dharmic art cultivated by someone else? Piak. A third slap. Why don't you take a look at your bloodline and potential? Even if that Dharmic art was given to you, do you fucking think you can learn it? The Horned Dragon Grand Elder cursed as he slapped Long Zhong's mouth. The dragons watched with widened eyes. Elder Long Zhong was way too unlucky today. He had just been slapped a few times by the Blue Dragon Grand Elder and now, he was beaten up again. Furthermore, the dragons were confused and did not know why Long Zhong was beaten up. Even Long Zhong himself was stunned, let alone them. What's going on today? Where am I? Who am I? Why is everyone slapping me? Long Zhong's head buzzed from the slaps and was already in a mess. There was no way Long Zhong knew that the 5 Grand Elders were worried that Su Zimo would be disgusted by his actions. If Su Zimo were to leave the dragon race, that would be the greatest loss for the dragon race. Scram! The Horned Dragon Grand Elder ground his teeth and cursed. Go back and reflect on yourself in front of the wall. Don't come out without my orders. Yes. Long Zhong could only grit his teeth and agree before turning to leave angrily. In the dragon blood battlefield, Long Tsong smiled gently and said, Long Zhu, you don't have to worry. If you can't use this or that, you will feel restricted and there won't be any point to this battle. If I defeat you, it'll be an unfair victory. No worries. Su Zimo said indifferently, even without Baron, you won't be able to win. Actually, even without Long Zhong's suggestion, Su Zimo had no intention of using Baron. Baron's lifespan reduction was way too domineering. If he was dealing with enemies, he naturally had nothing to fear. However, Su Zimo had a good impression of Long Tsong, and naturally did not want to cause Long Tsong's lifespan to be wasted for no reason just for the sake of this fight. At the Void Reversion Realm, when he pushed Baron to its limits, it could reach a level where one's lifespan was reduced by 500 years a breath. But now that he was at the Dharma characteristic realm, the power of Baron was doubled. 1,000 years could be reduced with a single breath. Normally speaking, the lifespan of Dharma characteristic Tao Lords was less than 10,000 years. In other words, 10 breaths of Baron could kill a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord. Long Tsong possessed the bloodline of a 5-clawed divine dragon. Even if he had a long lifespan, he could not withstand the speed of the lifespan reduction. Long Tsong no longer tried persuading Su Zimo. In his opinion, Su Zimo would naturally release that barren Dharmic art when he was forced to a dead end. He wanted to witness the power of that Dharmic art. Battle! Long Tsong hollered and strode forward. Leaping up from the ground, he arrived above Su Zimo's head instantly with a torrential aura. Splash! The sound of a tsunami surged from Long Tsong's body. Tsunami blood was deafening. As a five-clawed divine dragon, it was not surprising for Long Tsong to cultivate to the tsunami blood realm. The moment he attacked, he did not hold back at all and channeled the power of his bloodline to its limits. He reached out and slapped Su Zimo's head fiercely. Chapter 1208, 9 Demon Kings, Complete Silence. Chapter 1208, 9 Demon Kings, Complete Silence. Powerful. Extremely powerful. That simple attack caused Su Zimo to feel a suffocating pressure. Long Tsong's tsunami blood was almost gushing out of his body and arrived instantly. In terms of bloodline alone, the power released by Long Tsong was even stronger than Di'in. Of course by now, Su Zimo had undergone a complete transformation and was unlike before. Bang! Boom! Boom! Su Zimo's blood chi surged and his body seemed to be surging with raging tides. He did not retreat at all against Long Tsong, who descended from the skies like a god and punched in reverse against the latter's palm. Bang! The fist and palm collided. The dragons could clearly feel the entire Dragon Bone Valley tremble. The collision of bloodline and physical body released a tremendous amount of energy at that moment. There was a momentary pause and the world seemed to have stopped. Immediately, that energy fluctuation burst forth and spread in all directions with a terrifying aura. A single clash was enough to cause such a commotion and stirs broke out within the dragons. The dragon race loved to fight and was naturally excited about such a rare battle throughout history. Finally, someone from our race can fight against Long Tsong. That's far from it. The two of them merely exchanged a single round. Who do you guys think will win this battle? That was a question that all the dragons were guessing. I'll bet on Long Zhu. He has awakened 3 divine powers and undergone 4 baptisms of his bloodline and body. It will definitely be Long Tsong, there's no doubt about that. Although Long Zhu has awakened 3 divine powers and underwent 4 transformations, don't forget that his bloodline is impure. A 5-clawed divine dragon is innately superior to dragons, let alone dragons with impure bloodlines. That's right. Also, don't forget that Long Zhu has just entered the Dharma characteristic realm and Long Tsong is already at perfected Dharma characteristic realm. Most of the dragons, including the elders of the dragon race, were still biased towards Long Tsong. Only the 5 grand elders in midair remained silent. If their guess was correct, it would be extremely difficult for Long Tsong to win this battle. Long Tsong's only shot at victory was his ability to conjure his complete true form while Long Zhu was unable to for now. In that short period of time, Su Zimo and Long Tsong had already fought for more than 10 rounds in the Dragon Blood battlefield. They were collisions in terms of strength. Although it looked simple, crude and savage, it was extremely dangerous. If any strike were to land, the other party would be severely injured. In the eyes of the dragons, the two of them seemed to be on par. However, on the battlefield, Long Tsong had another feeling that he was getting more alarmed the longer they fought. Right now, he had already pushed his power of blood chi to its limits, but he could not gain any advantage still. On the contrary, each time Su Zimo attacked, his blood chi would surge with a boundless might. His strength was increasing exponentially instead. How could this be? Long Tsong's heart skipped a beat. He possessed the bloodline of a 5-clawed divine dragon and was a king of the dragon race with an extremely strong bloodline. How could he be suppressed by someone else? More importantly, Long Tsong believed that he was invincible in melee combat. However, he could not gain any advantage against Su Zimo. Su Zimo would reveal his melee combat techniques from time to time. Tough, gentle, swift, agile and ever-changing. Even he was troubled by them. Long Tsong felt that he was not facing a dragon. It was the king of all demons. Long Tsong realized that if this continued, he might be the one unable to hold out. Good. Long Tsong could still speak despite the massive battle as he praised loudly. Ever since I awakened the bloodline of a 5-clawed divine dragon, you're the first person who has forced me to this extent. Roar! He reared his head and howled into the skies, letting out a resounding dragon roar. Immediately after, an extremely terrifying power burst forth from his body and his blood chi surged, forming swiftly behind him. A menacing and massive divine dragon descended upon the world. The divine dragon was covered in green scales and had a sharp gaze. It had a head, legs and sharp claws. Most importantly, there were 5 dragon claws beneath the divine dragon's abdomen. A 5-clawed divine dragon had descended. A unique pressure of the dragon race spread. Against that pressure, the dragons felt shudders and lowered their heads instinctively. None of the dragons dared to match the 5-clawed divine dragon behind Long Tsong. Bloodline phenomenon. A dragon elder said sternly, to think that Long Zhu's combat strength would be at this level, and even forced out Long Tsong's bloodline phenomenon. In that case, the battle is about to end. That's not for sure. Illumination Dragon Elder 4 shook his head. From what I know, Long Zhu has also cultivated a bloodline phenomenon. There are differences in strength between bloodline phenomenons. Even if Long Zhu manages to cultivate a bloodline phenomenon, can his bloodline phenomenon withstand the impact of a 5-clawed divine dragon? Another dragon elder pouted his lips in disapproval. On the battlefield. The moment Long Tsong released his bloodline phenomenon, scarlet demonic chi rumbled around Su Zimo, forming menacing, lifelike ancient demon kings one after another. Wild bovine demon king. Stone bear demon king. Anaconda demon king. Sanguine ape demon king. Divine steed demon king. Hell tiger demon king. Wind leopard demon king. 7 demon kings had appeared. The bloodlines of those demon kings were extremely ordinary. However, they were not disadvantaged against the 5-clawed divine dragon. What are those? Why would Long Zhu possess a bloodline phenomenon as such? The many dragon leaders frowned. Right then, another massive demon king descended after the 7 demon kings. Its body was slender and created raging tides with a burning gaze and unrestrained might. The 8th demon king, Desolate Ocean Dragon King. The 8 demon kings exuded an ancient aura. Even though they were merely phenomenons, they still emitted a strong blood stench. No one knew how much blood the 8 demon kings had spilled. Long Tsong's 5-clawed divine dragon was already disadvantaged against the descent of 8 demon kings. However, be it Long Tsong or the 5-clawed divine dragon behind him, not only did they not retreat in fear against such a confrontation, they even released an even stronger battle intent. Roar! Long Tsong opened his mouth and the 5-clawed divine dragon behind him opened its mouth at the same time. The man and dragon roared at the same time with a thunderous sound. This was the authority of a 5-clawed divine dragon that was not to be challenged. Everyone could sense that Long Tsong and the 5-clawed divine dragon behind him were truly enraged. Right then, the scarlet demonic chi behind Su Zimo surged and another massive object was formed. The dragons had just seen this massive creature before. It was the phenomenon that descended when Su Zimo awakened his 3rd divine power. To think that the phenomenon would become Su Zimo's bloodline phenomenon. The 9th demon king, Sea Calming Turtle. The 9 demon kings descended and surrounded Su Zimo. Long Tsong's aura had just risen when it was suppressed rapidly. Roar! Su Zimo opened his mouth and the 9 demon kings opened their mouths at the same time, letting out earth-shaking roars. The dragons were silent. Chapter 1209, That's All? Chapter 1209, That's All. The 9 demon kings descended and glared at the 5-clawed divine dragon not far away with murderous auras like fiends. Long Tsong's bloodline phenomenon was completely disadvantaged in terms of aura. Alright, let's see which of your phenomenons can defend against my 5-clawed divine dragon. Long Tsong hollered and the 5-clawed divine dragon behind him roared. It soared into the air and lunged toward Su Zimo with a shocking aura. Before Su Zimo gave any orders, the 9 demon kings surrounding him charged forward. 10 massive demon beasts fought in midair. Although they were phenomenons derived from blood chi, each collision would cause a series of explosions, causing the void to tremble and the weather to change. The moment they exchanged blows, the 5-clawed divine dragon was disadvantaged. Although the five-clawed divine dragon was strong and could kill 3 or 4 demon king phenomenons with ease, there were a full 9 demon kings that surrounded it. Furthermore, among the 9 demon kings, the combat strength of the sea calming turtle was almost comparable to the five-clawed divine dragon. Poof! The five-clawed divine dragon roared and extended its claws, ripping the wild bovine demon king's body apart. Instantly, the phenomenon dissipated. Of the 9 demon kings, there were 8 remaining. As for the five-clawed divine dragon's back, it was sliced by the winged leopard demon king as well. If not for the protection of the indestructible dragon scales, that attack might have ripped the five-clawed divine dragon into 2. The fight between the phenomenons was extremely tragic. In less than a dozen breaths, 3 demon king phenomenons on Su Zimo's side dissipated. As for the five-clawed divine dragon, it was covered in wounds and was in a tragic state. How could this be? Could the five-clawed divine dragon of our dragon race not defeat these demon beasts with inferior bloodlines? The dragons were dumbfounded. Nobody expected this outcome of the bloodline battle. All the dragons could tell that although 3 of the 9 demon kings were dead, the five-clawed divine dragon's stamina was depleted and its aura was weakened. Even the glow on its body had dimmed significantly. If this continued, the five-clawed divine dragon would definitely lose. Long Tsong had a grim expression as he swiped his wrist gently, causing a wisp of incomparably pure dragon blood to appear. He chanted in dragon language and conjured hand seals, directing the wisp of dragon blood onto the five-clawed divine dragon phenomenon. The five-clawed divine dragon shuddered and its aura surged. Roar! The five-clawed divine dragon roared and regained its divine power. It attacked once more and released its divine might, tearing the winged leopard demon king into pieces. Although it was only a wisp of bloodline, it possessed an extremely terrifying power. That was the bloodline of a five-clawed divine dragon. By using a secret skill to refine his bloodline and fuse it with the five-clawed divine dragon phenomenon, it was akin to Long Tsong granting a rebirth to his phenomenon. Even so, the difference between them was still great. There were still 5 demon king phenomenons on Su Zimo's side. Before long, another one was destroyed. However, cracks started appearing on the body of the five-clawed divine dragon, and it was on the brink of collapse. Finally, the sea calming turtle collided against the five-clawed divine dragon. Both phenomenons dispersed at the same time. As for Su Zimo's side, there were only 3 phenomenons left: Sanguine Ape Demon King, Hell Tiger Demon King and Desolate Ocean Dragon King. The 3 phenomenons did not stop and charged towards Long Tsong, who was not far away. All right. Long Tsong did not show the slightest bit of fear. Instead, he praised with a bright gaze and rose against 3 gigantic beings. Bang, bang, bang. He was using his body to fight against Su Zimo's bloodline phenomenon. Both parties collided violently. After a brief pause, a figure crashed onto the ground like a meteor, creating a human-shaped pit with dust and gravel. However, before long, the figure leaped up. It was Long Tsong. He looked a little wretched, but it was clear that he was not severely injured. The 3 phenomenons in midair had already turned into spots of light that scattered into the void. Long Tsong had destroyed Su Zimo's 3 bloodline phenomenons with his body. How terrifying was his strength! I knew that Long Tsong wouldn't be defeated so easily. Long Tsong seems fine. Instead, his aura is getting stronger. Let's wait and see. Long Tsong's counterattack is about to begin. Up till this point of his cultivation, he had never been in such a sorry state. The greater the impact he receives now, the sharper his counterattack will be. Many dragon elders heaved a sigh of relief. Unlike the dragons, the elders were calm. They could tell that although Long Tsong could shatter Su Zimo's 3 bloodline phenomenons, it was only partly because he was strong enough. More importantly, the 3 Demon King phenomenons were almost depleted as well. Ha 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 ha! Long Tsong roared in laughter. That's all there is to your bloodline phenomenon. Although there are many demon beasts, they are nothing but small fries. Is that so? Su Zimo smiled calmly without retorting. Long Tsong was indeed strong. The last time he saw an existence that could take on phenomenons with his body was the god race leader he encountered in Myriad Phenomenon City. However, the true terror of Su Zimo's bloodline phenomenon was not the initial 9 demon kings. All of a sudden, behind Su Zimo, demonic chi surged and a blood-colored butterfly gradually appeared. There were 2 bright moons imprinted on the wings that resembled a pair of eyes. The blood-colored butterfly was only around 10 feet wide and was way too tiny compared to the 9 previous Demon King phenomenons. However, after the blood-colored butterfly descended, the entire Dragonbone Valley fell into a dead silence. A terrifying aura spread. The dragons felt their hearts skip a beat. Even when the 9 Demon Kings and 5-clawed Divine Dragon phenomenons descended, they were merely shocked. However, that blood-colored butterfly made them feel fear. Not to mention the dragons below, even the many dragon elders who were watching in midair gasped. "What is that demon beast?" A dragon elder's voice trembled. The 5 grand elders of the dragon race had grim expressions as they fixed their gazes on the blood-colored butterfly. Even with their experience, they could not identify the origin of the blood-colored butterfly. "There's another bloodline phenomenon?" Long Tsong's expression changed as well and he was on guard. The butterfly looked extremely weak and had yet to materialize. It was only in a half-illusory state and was almost negligible compared to the torrential aura of the previous 9 demon kings. Even so, Long Tsong still felt a strong sense of danger. That was despite the fact that he was dozens of feet away from the blood-colored butterfly. "That's all there is to my bloodline phenomenon." Su Zimo smiled. Suddenly, the wings of the blood-colored butterfly flapped gently. Its movements were so subtle that it was almost impossible to notice. However, that slight flap caused a terrifying storm. The void around Long Tsong distorted, changed, collapsed and caved in. Long Tsong's eyes widened and he could only last for a moment. As though he was struck by lightning, he was sent flying and spat out a mouthful of blood, tumbling into the distance motionlessly. The place fell into an uproar. Chapter 12:10 Complete Suppression. Chapter 12:10 Complete Suppression. As a 5-clawed divine dragon, he was sent flying by a gentle flap of a blood-colored butterfly's wings and spat out blood. What sort of a bloodline phenomenon was that? Long Zhu's bloodline was impure. How did he manage to cultivate such a terrifying phenomenon? Could it be that his bloodline was even stronger and nobler than the 5-clawed divine dragon? The scene before them had completely exceeded their expectations. Even the dragons who had initially thought highly of Su Zimo did not expect Long Tsong to lose so thoroughly. He was severely injured by Long Zhu's bloodline phenomenon. "Our young master sure has many secrets." The Blue Dragon Grand Elder could not help but send a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness and lamented. The Illumination Dragon Grand Elder nodded as well. "That's right. At the very least, the power of this bloodline phenomenon has far exceeded our expectations." In the dragon blood battlefield, Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief and calmed his bloodline. The blood-colored butterfly behind him dissipated as well. He was prepared to leave. Not everyone could defend against the attack of the blood-colored butterfly. Of course, he did not continue his pursuit. Although Long Tsong was severely injured, his body and bloodline would recover before long. Has the outcome of this battle been decided? That should be the case. Long Tsong is motionless and looks like he fainted. The dragons were still unwilling to believe as they fixed their gazes on the figure sprawled on the ground. Cough. Suddenly, a soft cough sounded. The figure crawled up slowly from the ground and looked extremely wretched. His hair was disheveled and his clothes were tattered. However, his eyes were bright and his fighting spirit was not diminished. The dragons cheered. In the hearts of the dragons, they were still unwilling to see their only 5-clawed divine dragon suffer a crushing defeat just like that. Wiping away the blood at the corner of his mouth, Long Tsong looked at Su Zimo in the distance and grinned. "Don't tell me you think that you can defeat me with a single bloodline phenomenon." Su Zimo paused in his tracks with a hint of admiration in his eyes. There were not many people who could withstand the attack of the blood butterfly with their bodies. There were even less people who could stand up after enduring it. As a 5-clawed divine dragon, Long Tsong displayed terrifying defense and regeneration capabilities. That was the power of his bloodline. "What tricks do you have? Use them all." I'll take all of them. Su Zimo had immense respect for Long Tsong and smiled gently. The battle has just begun. Long Tsong hollered and the sound of bones cracking could be heard from his body. Under countless gazes, his entire body expanded. In the blink of an eye, a divine dragon dozens of feet long appeared where he stood. It was covered in green scales that shone with a cold glint. Above the menacing dragon's head was a pair of dragon horns and the spikes on its back were sharp with 5 claws beneath its abdomen. A complete true body of the dragon race. Long Tsong hovered in midair and looked down at Su Zimo on the battlefield. Compared to his massive dragon body, Su Zimo was as insignificant as an ant. However, the ant raised its head and met the gaze of the 5-clawed divine dragon. In terms of aura, it was not inferior at all. Furthermore, his bloodline was even slightly suppressed by Su Zimo. Others might not be able to sense it, but he could. This was an extremely unusual phenomenon. Under normal circumstances, a 5-clawed divine dragon was a king of the dragon race and had an extremely strong bloodline. There was no way it could be suppressed by the bloodline of another dragon. However, the battle between the two of them was not over yet and Long Tsong did not think too much about it. At the same time, Su Zimo's body underwent some changes as well. His body rose rapidly and was now 30 feet tall. Scarlet scales grew on his skin and the temperature in the void climbed rapidly. Against Long Tsong, who had transformed into a complete dragon, Su Zimo did not dare to be careless and reverted to his half-dragon form. That was the only dragon form he could conjure up till now. Almost at the same time, Long Tsong descended from the skies and charged down fiercely. Su Zimo leaped up and defied the heavens. Boom! 2 dragon claws collided with a loud bang. Su Zimo's body descended rapidly like a meteor crashing onto the ground. Right after, he rose from the ground at an even faster speed and charged forward once more. Bang! 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 The two of them clashed repeatedly and let out a series of explosions. The void trembled repeatedly and dust billowed in a terrifying manner. Pest! Long Zhu is really strong. That's right. Even though he's only in his half-dragon form, he's able to fight head-on against Long Tsong in his complete dragon form. What would happen if he could conjure a complete dragon form? Why is there no change to Long Zhu's right hand? It's still the same as a human's palm. Right then, a dragon noticed this abnormality and revealed a confused expression. In midair, the 5 grand elders exchanged glances and nodded. There's no mistake. There's only a single possibility why he can fight against a 5-clawed divine dragon in his half-dragon form. Yes, it seems like the reason why the young master is unable to conjure a complete true body is because his bloodline has yet to fuse perfectly with the divine phoenix bone. I wonder where that opportunity lies. The 5 grand elders conversed secretly. In the skies above the battlefield, Long Tsong charged forward once more. Raising his dragon horns, he charged towards Su Zimo's chest. Among the dragon race, their fangs and claws were the sharpest. However, the toughest part of the dragon race was the pair of dragon horns on their heads. Given the combat strength of Long Tsong's bloodline, even some low-level mighty figure-dermic weapons could not withstand the impact of his dragon horns, let alone a body of flesh and blood. Furthermore, once the innate divine powers of the dragon horns were awakened, there were many other mysteries to them. Su Zimo did not dodge or avoid. He reached out and grabbed Long Tsong's horns without budging at all. However, the impact of Long Tsong's attack was too strong. In midair, Su Zimo had no strength and his body retreated continuously. Rise! Su Zimo's blood chi surged and he growled deeply. Gripping the horns of Long Tsong with both hands, large tendons and muscles bulged beneath the scarlet scales on his arms. An incomparably powerful force burst forth. Right in front of the dragons, Su Zimo lifted Long Tsong's massive body that was dozens of feet tall and swung it through the air in an arc, smashing it heavily onto the ground on the other side. Boom! There was a deafening sound. The ground of the dragon blood battlefield was smashed apart, forming a ravine dozens of feet long that caused Long Tsong's body to sink in. The dragons were shocked and winced, feeling their teeth ache. Roar! Long Tsong roared and struggled to stand up. If it was any other dragon, they would have been paralyzed after suffering such a serious injury. However, the 5-clawed divine dragon was way too strong. Despite receiving such a blow, he was still able to stand up. The aura around him turned increasingly violent as he shook his dragon head, wanting to break free from Su Zimo. However, Su Zimo did not give him that chance at all. Before Long Tsong was fully awake, Su Zimo exerted strength in his arms once more and a scorching aura surged from his nose and mouth. Su Zimo lifted Long Tsong's body once more and smashed it to the other side. Boom! It was yet another deafening sound. The mouths of the dragons twitched. The entire Dragon Bone Valley shuddered. This was a complete suppression of strength. Chapter 12:11 Divine Powers Fight. Chapter 12:11 Divine Powers Fight. The dragons were extremely excited at the sight of this massive battle. The dragon race advocated melee combat the most and focused on violence and savageness without requiring much technique. And now, Su Zimo had pushed that violence to its limits. The dragon race advocated strength as supremacy. Up till this point of the battle, Su Zimo's methods had already subdued many dragons. Of course, there were still some dragons who were unwilling to believe what happened. Could the five-clawed divine dragon that had transformed into a complete dragon not defeat Long Zhu? Crackle! Right then, the horns on Long Tsong's head flashed with streaks of lightning, releasing an intense power of thunder. Caught off guard, Su Zimo's expression changed and he felt his hands go numb. An incomparably strong electric current surged into his body and destroyed his life force. Instinctively, Su Zimo released his grip. Long Tsong seized the opportunity to escape and roared before soaring into the air. Power of thunder. Heavens, Long Tsong has awakened the power of thunder. As expected of a five-clawed divine dragon. To think that Long Tsong would be hiding such a powerful trump card. A series of exclamations sounded from the dragons. Among the dragon race, apart from the powers of metal, wood, water, fire and earth, there were other powers that could awaken. The power of thunder was one of them. The Illumination Dragon Grand Elder and the others turned around. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder smiled faintly and looked pleased. No matter what, Long Tsong was from the Blue Dragon lineage. The stronger Long Tsong was, the more pride he felt. This was comprehended when Long Tsong entered the perfected Dharma characteristic realm. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder said, to be precise, Long Tsong awakened 2 divine powers at the Dharma characteristic realm as well and underwent 2 body transformations. The Horned Dragon Grand Elder nodded. No wonder. If not for those 2 transformations, Long Tsong would have lost long ago. On the battlefield. Ha 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 ha. This was the first time that Long Tsong made Su Zimo suffer. He could not help but feel delighted and burst into laughter, shouting, Long Zhu, it doesn't feel good being electrocuted, right? Puny tricks. Su Zimo laughed as well and his eyes shone brightly. Suddenly, 2 balls of flames burned and shot towards Long Tsong with 2 scarlet beams of light. After entering the Dharma characteristic realm, the Illumination Dragon Eye had transformed into a divine power completely. Thunder Dragon Descent. Long Tsong did not dare to be careless as lightning coiled around his horns. Instantly, a divine thunder dragon was formed and charged towards the 2 scarlet divine lights. Boom! The 2 divine powers collided and a gigantic semicircular fluctuation spread out, emitting a blinding light as air currents surged. Long Tsong fell from midair. Su Zimo retreated a few steps in succession as well. This divine power fight was even. Good, good, good. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged as he praised in succession, here's another divine power from me. He roared into the skies and a divine light burst forth from his glabella, entering the firmaments. Boom! Immediately after, a loud bang sounded from the skies. The clouds exploded and a gigantic thick stone pillar descended slowly from the skies. The stone pillar was grayish-white and there was a 5-clawed divine dragon climbing on it. It gave off an ancient aura and possessed a rampant might that could suppress the dragons. Ancestral Dragon Divine Pillar. A series of cries sounded from the dragons. Who would have thought that there would be a divine power within the Ancestral Dragon Divine Pillar? That's right. Long Zhu received a baptism in his human form by accident and obtained the inheritance of this divine power. When I enter the Dharma characteristic realm, I'll definitely choose to undergo baptism in my human form as well. Many dragons who did not understand what happened thought that the reason why Su Zimo received the inheritance of the divine power was because he had not transformed into a complete dragon. The stone pillar looked exactly the same as the ancestral dragon divine pillar. However, it was dozens of times larger than the ancestral dragon divine pillar, and its aura was much more terrifying and berserk. Even Long Tsong, who was dozens of feet long, was like a slender snake beneath the stone pillar, as though it could be squashed into sludge. A huge shadow loomed over. As the ancestral dragon divine pillar approached, the pressure became increasingly clear. In fact, many dragons felt suffocated and their faces turned pale. If that was the case for the dragons watching in the vicinity, it was easy to imagine the pressure Long Tsong was under on the battlefield against the ancestral dragon divine pillar. Divine Dragon's Claw. The dragon claws beneath Long Tsong's abdomen shone with cold lights and surged with the power of divine powers. This was an innate divine power awakened by the blue dragon lineage. The combined attack of 4 claws was enough to tear everything apart. Shoo! 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 4 dragon claws swiped viciously at the stone pillar that was crushing down. Squeak! Squeak! The dragon claws swiped across the stone pillar, causing stone fragments to fly everywhere with an ear-piercing sound. Long Tsong's claws snapped and fresh blood flowed, dyeing the stone pillar red. Although the divine dragon's claws were strong, they could not defend against the power of the ancestral dragon divine pillar. Divine Dragon's Tail Whip. Long Tsong released another secret skill of the dragon race. Shrugging his body that was dozens of feet long, the strength in his body started from the dragon's head and passed through its spine to its tail before being flung out viciously. Boom! The dragon tail collided against the stone pillar. Cracks finally appeared on the stone pillar and the power of divine powers began to dissipate. It was even worse for Long Tsong. His 4 claws were dripping with blood and most of the scales on his tail had already fallen off. He slammed heavily onto the ground and coughed out blood. Even so, Long Tsong's eyes shone brightly. He managed to block it. At that moment, there were no thoughts about victory or loss in his mind. All he knew was that with the help of this battle, his combat strength had increased once more and he had a breakthrough. He could even sense the aura of the conjoint body realm. Ha 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 ha. It was worth it. Although Long Tsong was drenched in blood, he was still laughing like a lunatic. Let the battle end here, the Blue Dragon Grand Elder said in a deep voice. It was clear who was stronger in the current situation. I haven't lost yet. Long Tsong shook his head gently and glared at Su Zimo, who was not far away, prepared to launch his final attack. You can still fight? Su Zimo asked. The divine dragon claw was merely a divine power awakened by the blue dragon lineage. Long Tsong said slowly, as a 5-clawed divine dragon, I have a final move for this divine power that I awakened. I'll only acknowledge you as the young master if you can take this move. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder seemed to have thought of something and retreated once more. The strongest killing move of a 5-clawed divine dragon was on his 5th claw. Kill! Long Tsong lunged forward once more. Ignoring the blood flowing down his body, the 5th dragon claw beneath his abdomen extended. Its bones were menacing and its sharp claws could penetrate everything. An extremely terrifying aura emanated from the 5th dragon claw. The entire void was penetrated by the 5th claw. Long Tsong's counterattack. The reason why he braved the danger of being severely injured and withstood the ancestral dragon divine pillar, without using the divine power, was because of that final attack. This was his greatest trump card. Chapter 12:12. Reign over 5 lineages. Chapter 12:12. Reign over 5 lineages. 5th claw. Su Zimo focused his gaze. The menacing claw that crushed over with a terrifying aura made his heart skip a beat. There were truly not many powers of the same cultivation realm that could make him feel shudders. His physique and bloodline were strong. After transforming into his half-dragon form, he was covered in scarlet scales and his defense was extremely strong. Even connate dermic weapons of the same level could not hurt him. However, that claw was extremely terrifying. It was enough to rip his body apart. Su Zimo extended his right hand slowly with scarlet flames burning on it as an extremely terrifying power spread out. Divine Phoenix Bone. The other dragons could not make out anything, but the 5 grand elders of the dragon race exclaimed internally. After entering the Dharma characteristic realm, Su Zimo's transformation was in all aspects and his overall combat strength increased. More importantly, the instant he entered the Dharma characteristic realm, he sensed the power of the Divine Phoenix Bone. The power of the Divine Phoenix Bone was extremely terrifying. However, prior to this, Su Zimo had no connection to the Divine Phoenix Bone and he could not control its power either. Each time the Divine Phoenix Bone was activated, it was with external help. After entering the Dharma characteristic realm, he could already release the power of the Divine Phoenix Bone on his own. Activate the Divine Phoenix's Claw. Against Long Tsong's incoming 5th claw, a thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind. He was prepared to fight it head-on with the Divine Phoenix's Claw. However, there was a hidden danger. After entering the Dharma characteristic realm, Su Zimo had yet to truly release the Divine Phoenix's Claw, and it was difficult for him to gauge his mastery of it. Long Tsong was in an extremely bad condition right now. If he were to miscalculate and end up killing the latter. Su Zimo hesitated for a moment before the power within the Divine Phoenix Bone dissipated. What's Long Zhu doing? The Blue Dragon Grand Elder noticed this detail and frowned slightly. The Illumination Dragon Grand Elder said in a deep voice, "Is Long Zhu not prepared to retaliate and is instead defending with all his might?" However, the power of the 5th claw is extraordinary. It's too difficult to defend against it. The Horned Dragon Grand Elder shook his head. In the Dragon Blood battlefield. Waving his hands, Su Zimo drew a semicircle on both sides of his body before gathering it in front of his chest. His fingers shifted as he conjured hand seals and drew in front of him. At the same time, his glabella shone and a divine light shot into his hands. Condense. Su Zimo's gaze intensified. Buzz. An incomparably mighty divine power descended. Heaven and earth rumbled. Su Zimo's hands shifted in front of him and conjured a gigantic stone shield. It was rough and ancient with curved patterns etched on it in a mysterious manner. The stone shield resembled the shell of a divine turtle. This is... The dragons widened their eyes. Even the 5 grand elders were shocked. They had never seen such a divine power before. Furthermore, that divine power seemed like it had nothing to do with the dragon race. Could this be the 3rd divine power that Long Zhu comprehended? The Blue Dragon Grand Elder asked softly. That should be the case. The other 4 Grand Elders nodded. The 5 Grand Elders were right. That divine power was the first divine power in the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness. It came from the sea calming turtle and was known as the Spirit Turtle Shield. According to the divine power section, if one could comprehend this divine power completely, they could reach the peak of defense. If he wanted to comprehend the Spirit Turtle Shield completely, he would have to comprehend the patterns on the surface that contained endless secrets. The patterns on the Spirit Turtle Shield intertwined densely. At that moment, only a small portion of it shone faintly. If all the patterns on the surface were to light up, it would mean that the divine power was cultivated to its perfected stage. The moment the Spirit Turtle Shield was formed, Long Tsong's 5th claw struck the stone shield and let out a piercing sound. Sparks flew everywhere. The 2 of them were motionless. The entire world seemed to have stopped. The dragons held their breaths. All of them knew that the outcome of this battle could very well be decided in that instant. Roar! Finally, a pained expression appeared on Long Tsong's face as he let out a tragic cry. Blood dripped from his claws as he fell back. Bang! His body that was dozens of feet long slammed heavily onto the battlefield, causing dust to fly everywhere. On the other side, Su Zimo held his shield with both hands and did not budge a single step at all. Victory was decided. Long Zhu shall be the young master. Long Tsong let out a long breath. After saying that, he could no longer hold on and fainted on the spot. He was severely injured in succession, and it was already his limit to be able to last till this point. The dragons were motionless as they looked at the figure standing in the center of the battlefield in a daze for a long time. Even some of the elders of the dragon race could not believe that Long Tsong was completely defeated, let alone them. What are you waiting for? The Blue Dragon Grand Elder said in a deep voice. Bring Long Tsong to the primordial divine spring and heal him quickly. Even if Long Tsong was defeated, he was still a 5-clawed divine dragon of the dragon race. Su Zimo was the only one above him and nothing must happen to him. Some Blue Dragon Elders moved one after another and brought Long Tsong with them to the primordial divine spring. There's no doubt about this battle. The Horned Dragon Grand Elder lamented. Don't forget, there's even 2 powerful Dharmic arts that the young master has yet to use. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder said, in my opinion, he has more trump cards than those 2 Dharmic arts. At the very least, he did not reveal his divine phoenix bone. What are you saying so much for? Hurry and get down to business. The Hornless Dragon Grand Elder urged. The 5 Grand Elders were in high spirits and exchanged glances with smiles. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder declared, everyone, the internal ceremony will continue. However, our young master has already been decided. Does anyone have any objections? No. After a brief pause, the dragons cheered. Among them, the Illumination Dragon lineage shouted the loudest with an excited expression. The dragon race believed that the strong reigned supreme. If Su Zimo could defeat Long Tsong, he would be the young master of the dragon race and no one would question that. All right. The Blue Dragon Grand Elder nodded. Long Zhu shall revert to his original name of Long Mo and he will be the young master of our race to reign over the 5 lineages. Young master. Young master. Young master. The dragons of the 5 lineages cheered in unison. Standing in the dragon blood battlefield, Su Zimo surveyed his surroundings and enjoyed this moment, feeling emotional. After entering the Dharma characteristic realm, his combat strength increased exponentially and he could even kill conjoint body mighty figures with his many trump cards. Even against a half-martial ancestor, he could protect himself. He was no longer the existence 10 years ago, who barely survived after his body was crippled by a single strike of a half-martial ancestor. Unknowingly, he had already arrived at this point. Up till this point of his cultivation, he had experienced countless dangers along the way. The path he crossed was like a bottomless abyss that was extremely treacherous. Although she was still untouchable, he was relieved that he was one step closer to the figure in his memories. I wonder how things are with the Green Lotus True Body and if there are any opportunities for him to enter the Dharma characteristic realm. Su Zimo muttered softly. He did not know that his Green Lotus True Body had entered the Tao inheritance ground. At that moment, the battle was over and he began to summon the Green Lotus True Body in his heart. Chapter 12:13, Twilight Years. Chapter 12:13, Twilight Years. In the inheritance ground, Stone Statue Cemetery. The heart of the Green Lotus True Body stirred. As though he sensed something, he woke up from his cultivation comprehension and received the information from the Dragon True Body. Both true bodies were Su Zimo and their minds were connected. There was no difference. The Green Lotus True Body smiled gently when it sensed the joy of the Dragon True Body. The Dragon True Body cultivated smoothly and obtained an opportunity to become the young master of the dragon race and reign over the 5 lineages. It was a firm foothold and the Green Lotus True Body no longer had to worry about his counterpart. The Green Lotus True Body was in no hurry to enter the Dharma characteristic realm. Or rather, the reason why he came to the Tao inheritance ground was not because he wanted his cultivation to advance, but because he wanted to deduce the martial Tao. In truth, from the moment he arrived at the Tao inheritance ground, the Green Lotus True Body had already prepared for the worst. That was the failure of the deduction. To create a grand Tao unlike the immortal, Buddhist and fiend Tao such that mortals without spirit roots could cultivate. How difficult was that? Throughout history, countless wise sages and experts exhausted their entire lives to no avail. That was the case for the mighty figure of Tomb sect in the ancient battlefield as well. However, Su Zimo was only a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord. He knew very well that this was a path of no return. Since he was already on it, he could only continue until the end of his life. However, he did not regret it. In fact, Su Zimo was mentally prepared for the fact that his deduction would fail and his Green Lotus True Body would pass away at the end of its lifespan. That was the worst possible as well as the most likely outcome. Su Zimo severed his connection with his dragon true body and immersed himself in the cultivation technique of half-martial ancestor instant, comprehending and verifying it repeatedly. Even though he cultivated the cultivation techniques of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects, he had no clue how to deduce the martial Tao immediately. What he wanted to do was to comprehend all the 30-odd inheritances in the cemetery and memorize them. He wanted to fuse the essence of the cultivation techniques of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects and find a possible path. He wanted to find a possible path to alter fate. Cultivation was endless. It was the same day after day. It had only been 3 years on Tianhuang mainland, slightly more than 1,000 days. However, Su Zimo had already spent more than 1,000 years in the cemetery beneath the stone statue of half-martial ancestor instant due to the flow of time there. Prior to this, Su Zimo was only more than 100 years old. 4 void reversions 100 years old was equivalent to a youth. But now, after more than 1,000 years, Su Zimo had already become a young man at the void reversion realm. He had never cultivated for such a long time. However, the 1,000 years were not wasted after all. In the stone statue cemetery, he had already comprehended more than 30 ancient inheritances of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects, including the immense Heaven Sea Burial Secret Manual, Apocalyptic Heavenly Fiend Manual, Great Might Heavenly Dragon Bodhisattva Sutra and so on. The Tao inheritance ground was a world of its own. It was impossible for his cultivation to advance here. Although Su Zimo's cultivation had not improved after more than 1,000 years, his combat strength had already reached an extremely terrifying level after comprehending more than 30 inheritances. The 30-odd stone statues had been passed down from the ancient era. Nobody had entered this place before. Anyone who could obtain any of those inheritances would be able to dominate the world. However, Su Zimo managed to comprehend all the inheritances here. He was the first in history. Under normal circumstances, after obtaining an inheritance, the other stone statues would no longer view this person as their successor. The reason why more than 30 stone statues chose Su Zimo was not only because he crossed the 3 tribulations domain. More than that, it was because he had established his Tao heart here 10 years ago to impart martial arts to all living beings. Among the 30-odd stone statues, there were still remnant consciousnesses of ancient mighty figures. Those remnant consciousnesses wanted to do everything they could to help Su Zimo. After leaving behind the inheritances, the remnant consciousnesses did not disperse. They wanted to see the final outcome as well. However, time was merciless. Even true life could not withstand the passage of time, let alone remnant consciousnesses. After more than 1,000 years, there were only a few remnant consciousnesses that remained and accompanied Su Zimo. It was relatively simple to comprehend those inheritances. The true difficulty lies in the deduction later on. Su Zimo assumed a lotus position with his eyes closed. He recalled the cultivation of his life and tried his best to search for an opportunity. Time flew like an arrow. In the blink of an eye, another 1,000 years passed in the stone statue cemetery. Only slightly more than 6 years had passed in Tianhuang mainland. However, Su Zimo had spent more than 2,000 years here. After more than 2,000 years, Su Zimo was already equivalent to a middle-aged void reversion. His face had matured and there was a hint of age in his eyes. In the cemetery, even the few remnant consciousnesses that remained and accompanied him dissipated with indignance. In the end, they could not endure through it. Su Zimo's eyes were slightly red as he bowed deeply towards the 30-odd stone statues. Seniors, don't worry. Even if I have to exhaust my lifespan, I'll definitely deduce a martial Tao and change the fates of the masses. Nobody answered him. He was the only one left in the cemetery. It was as though he was going to be alone on that path for all eternity. Su Zimo took a deep breath and composed himself before continuing to deduce. He had gained quite a bit in the past 1,000 years and had found some clues. Actually, it was impossible to create a complete martial Tao. His cultivation realm was only at the void reversion realm. However, it was relatively easier if he merely wanted to allow mortals without spirit roots to cultivate. Su Zimo did not have a spirit root and started off with demonic cultivation. There was an extremely important realm for both immortality and demonic cultivation, core formation. It was similar to how the different Taos were different means to the same end. Core formation was an insurmountable realm. After forming a core, one could form their own spirit through demonic cultivation. Immortal cultivators could create essence spirits that were similar. In other words, if he could create a cultivation technique and allow mortals without spirit roots to form their cores without taking on demon form, it would be equivalent to settling the most critical aspect of deducing the martial Tao. That was because one would cultivate an essence spirit after forming a core. The cultivation of an essence spirit would break free from the shackles of the spirit root, and one would be able to comprehend heaven and earth with their essence spirit. Su Zimo continued to deduce based on that line of thought. Time slowly passed. In the blink of an eye, another 1,000 years passed. Su Zimo stood motionlessly at the foot of the stone statue. His body was covered in dust and his original green robes could no longer be seen. It had only been 9 years in the outside world. However, Su Zimo was already more than 3,000 years old. Over the years, he had never rested and had been constantly deducing and comprehending. He failed countless times but he never gave up. Time continued to pass. In the blink of an eye, another 1,000 years passed. Su Zimo was already more than 4,000 years old. The lifespan of a void reversion was only 5,000 years. At more than 4,000 years old, it meant that he was in his later years and his blood chi was starting to deteriorate, entering a twilight state. At that moment, Su Zimo's hair had already turned grayish-white and rested on his shoulders. There were also some wrinkles on his face. The cruelty of time was unstoppable. Chapter 12:14. Half of the Martial Sutra. Chapter 12:14. Half of the Martial Sutra. Su Zimo opened his eyes with a hint of vicissitude. Repeated deduction day after day for 4,000 years. This was an immense torture for anyone. There was no one accompanying him on that path. It was dark and lonely without any light. He did not know where the end point was either. If it was anyone else, they would have broken down mentally, unable to endure it. However, Su Zimo's Tao heart that was established here was unshakable. He could only survive till now after passing the test of the 3 tribulations domain. Even so, his Tao heart wavered. After more than 4,000 years, there was still no conclusion to his deduction of the martial Tao. Su Zimo could sense that he was infinitesimally close to the final secret, but he was still a step away. That single step could be an insurmountable chasm. Of course, there was another possibility. The direction he chose to deduce was wrong from the beginning. Deducing a Tao from scratch was like a dot that could spread endlessly with boundless possibilities. If a mistake was made from the start, it could carry on and lead one further and further away from the endpoint. A gentle breeze blew and a few strands of gray hair brushed past his eyes. Su Zimo pursed his lips and his gaze dimmed. He did not have much lifespan left. He had 700 years at most. At that moment, if he were to leave the Tao inheritance ground and return to Tianhuang mainland, he had a chance of entering the Dharma characteristic realm in one go. However, if that was the case, all the comprehensions and inspiration he gained over the years would most likely dissipate and he would have to start afresh. At that time, was he going to spend another 4,000 years? How many changes would happen in Tianhuang mainland after 4,000 years? He could not afford to wait. Neither could his old friends and kin. Furthermore, the difficulty he would face would only increase if he restarted his deduction. He had a feeling that if he were to leave this time round, he would never get the chance to deduce the martial Tao. Su Zimo glanced sideways at the 30-odd stone statues and said softly, "Seniors, don't worry. I'll stay here. Even if I fail, I won't let down your Tao hearts and hopes." He was already prepared to die with his green lotus true body. Su Zimo closed his eyes again and continued to deduce. Time was still flowing rapidly. Su Zimo's lifespan was decreasing. 600 years. 500 years. 400 years. The luster on his face was gone and it was filled with wrinkles, making him look extremely old. Even if his body was the green lotus true body, his blood chi was already starting to deteriorate at the moment and his hair and beard were white, emanating an aura of twilight within his body. Su Zimo did not get up still. Before long, he only had 200 years left. He was already 4,800 years old. All of a sudden, Su Zimo shuddered and suddenly opened his eyes. A bedazzling glint flashed through his initially cloudy eyes. Success! Many mysterious sutras reverberated in his mind, forming a Tao that became increasingly clear. At that moment, a mysterious power surrounded him. It was not spirit energy, dharmic powers or divine powers. However, that power was still dissipating and had yet to materialize. Su Zimo was in no hurry to get up. He closed his eyes and continued to deduce. He was only at the initial mastery of the martial Tao and had many loopholes and flaws. He had to continue deducing and perfecting those loopholes. Time passed. Su Zimo's lifespan was almost up. Time was running out. Unknowingly, he only had 100 years left to his lifespan. To be fair, one was at the end of the road by the time their lifespan was less than 100 years. Under such circumstances, it was extremely dangerous for someone like him to spend so much effort to deduce the martial Tao. He could die at any moment. However, Su Zimo did not stop his deduction. Finally, when his lifespan was less than 50 years, he opened his eyes once more. Su Zimo stood up slowly and a sincere smile finally appeared on his old face. The mysterious power had already appeared beside him, forming gigantic golden words. There were a total of 81 of them and they surged with an unstoppable aura and will. That was the aura of the martial Tao. That was the will of the martial Tao. The martial Tao was about advancing courageously. It was about being true to one's heart and the ability to execute gratitude and hatred at will. The martial Tao was unyielding, a resisting boldness of millions of people. The deduction of the martial Tao itself was a manifestation of the martial Tao. Su Zimo's expression was emotional as he looked at the many golden words around him and murmured softly, "Go on, let all living beings in the world see this." 81 gigantic golden words soared into the skies as though they were sentient. The Tao inheritance ground was a world of its own and was isolated from the outside world. However, at that moment, the space could not stop the 81 golden words and it shattered, causing the world to tremble. 81 golden words descended upon the firmaments of Tianhuang mainland. At that moment, it did not matter if one was mortal or a cultivator. It did not matter if one was from the immortal, Buddhist or fiend sections. It did not matter if one was a demon or from the primordial 9 races. All the living beings of Tianhuang mainland noticed the 81 golden words above their heads. The entire world was shaken. What is this? Could it be a commotion caused by some extraordinary Mahayana patriarch? It seems to be from the Tao inheritance ground. Tianhuang mainland was in an uproar. Many mortals did not know what was going on and knelt down to pray in fear of impending trouble. I am desolate martial. After 5,000 years, I finally created half of the martial sutra. All living beings in the world are able to cultivate this and become immortals. Right then, an old voice sounded from midair. In the stone statue cemetery, Su Zimo merely whispered. However, his voice spread through the entire world with the augmentation of the 81 golden words. 100 Refinement Sect. Figures burst forth from the cave abode and descended in midair. Their leader was none other than mighty figure Extreme Fire of 100 Refinement Sect. This is... Mighty figure Extreme Fire had a shocked expression as he looked at the firmaments in disbelief and trembled. Could Zimo have successfully established his Tao? Ethereal Peak. The old immortal crane, Nian Qi and many other cultivators of the sects appeared at the same time and looked up. Young Master has succeeded. Nian Qi clenched her fists with a delighted expression. Great Zhou's palace. Ji Yaoxue and Xiaoning stood together emotionally. Pingyang town. Tao Yao stood in the courtyard and tilted his head. Blinking his large eyes, he pondered and said, "In that case, young Master is about to return? Who is Desolate Marshal?" Many mortals of Pingyang town asked curiously. I heard that Desolate Marshal is second young Master Su of our town. Ah, it's him. Is second young Master Su asking us mortals to cultivate as well? Hurry, memorize it. Many mortals watched fixedly at the 81 golden words in midair. At the same time, the conjoint body mighty figures of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend supersects came out of seclusion one after another. In fact, even many half-martial ancestor experts appeared. Desolate Martial wishes to establish a Tao and impart martial arts to all living beings. Could a junior truly have accomplished such an unprecedented act? Some people were shocked while others were doubtful. Enigma Palace. A slightly rotund cultivator danced with joy and shouted excitedly, "Old man, hurry and come out." Brother Su succeeded. "Stop your fuss, I'm watching." In the void, a figure appeared and gradually materialized. The old man wore a Confucian crown and held a folding fan in his hands. With a grim expression, he looked at the golden words in the firmaments and said in a deep voice, "If this half of the Martial Sutra is truly as Desolate Martial has described, it will be a supreme merit that will bring blessings to the masses and ensure their eternal existence." Chapter 12:15 9 Transformations of the Martial Tao. Chapter 12:15 9 Transformations of the Martial Tao. Although the 81 golden words looked extremely mysterious, even many conjoint body mighty figures and half-martial ancestor experts could not make out anything from them. Those with spirit roots can sense the spirit qi of heaven and earth before advancing to qi condensation, foundation establishment and form their golden cores. Su Zimo's aged voice continued ringing through Tianhuang mainland. Those words were common knowledge for cultivators. However, he was now saying it for the masses. Those without spirit roots cannot sense the spirit qi of heaven and earth and can only look for other methods. Actually, a human's body is a huge treasure with endless potential. The essence of the Martial Sutra is to refine one's body using secret skills and stimulate its potential to form a core. Although Su Zimo had a mortal body, he made use of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness to condense a demon inner core. Be it immortal, demon, Buddhist or fiend cultivation, core formation was an insurmountable realm and was one of the most important ones as well. It was like a watershed. After forming a core, one's lifespan would increase to 500 years. At that moment, it was not only the mortals in the world. Even cultivators of many sects were listening to Desolate Martial impart his Tao regardless of their cultivation realms. The Martial Tao uses secret skills to refine the body and there are a total of 9 transformations. Each transformation has a unique breathing method and body tempering technique that allows the body to transform and be reborn. I call it the 9 transformations of the Martial Tao. Actually, this half of the Martial Sutra contained many secret skill sutras that contained the profoundness of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects as well as Su Zimo's own comprehension. However, his inspiration came from his demonic cultivation. It was as the mighty figure of Tomb sect in the ancient battlefield had said, Su Zimo's existence was unprecedented. He cultivated the demon, immortal, Buddhist and fiend Taos. That was the reason why he was able to create a Tao that belonged to him. First transformation of the Martial Tao. 9 bulls 2 tigers. The moment he said that, 9 golden words appeared individually in the firmaments, shining with a bedazzling light. The 9 golden words seemed to transform into 9 little people that practiced 9 different actions in midair before coming to a stop. Those 9 words were the breathing secret skill of the first transformation. Those 9 actions were the body-tempering secret skill of the first transformation. After attaining greater mastery of the first transformation, one would possess immense strength. Second transformation of the Martial Tao, 5 Qi Essence. The second transformation aimed to refine one's organs. The 5 organs of the human body could also be called the 5 great divine treasures and possessed unimaginable potential. By refining the 5 organs, one could condense the divine qi of the 5 treasures and clear their 7 orifices. They would possess the amazing universal sight and hearing as well as receive an immense gain in strength. Even 5 horses would not be able to tear them apart. The organs refinement section of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness only began at the 5th section. However, Su Zimo pushed forward the refinement of one's organs in the Martial Tao. As he said that, another 9 golden words appeared in the firmaments, shining with beams of light and displaying different stances. Third transformation of the Martial Tao, bronze skin steel bones. This transformation focused on the skin and bones. At greater mastery, one would be invulnerable against weapons and fire and water. In the skies, 9 golden words shone once more, taking on human form and conjuring 9 body-tempering secret skills. 4th transformation of the martial Tao, undulating flexibility. At greater mastery of this transformation, one would be able to change their muscles, expand and contract their bones and tendons. Their appearances could be changed and they could be tall, strong or skinny. 5th transformation of the martial Tao, lead mercury amalgam blood. The 5th transformation was marrow cleansing and blood swapping. The bloodline would be condensed powerfully and flow gradually through one's body like a lead mercury amalgam. Their bones would be like snow, flawless without any impurities. At greater mastery of this transformation, one would possess lead mercury amalgam blood. At perfected stage, it would be tsunami blood. However, it was not only for mortals. Even for cultivators, it was extremely difficult to cultivate to the tsunami blood realm. Furthermore, in the Martial Sutra, one would be able to advance to the next transformation upon cultivating to the lead mercury amalgam blood realm. 6th transformation of the martial Tao, blood qi golden core. After refining their organs and swapping blood through their marrow, one's blood qi would be robust and finally converge, forming a golden core of blood qi in their dantian. They would officially advance to the golden core realm. Above the clouds, the 9 tiny golden figures practiced 9 different styles before hugging their blood qi eventually to condense a golden core. Good, good, good. Within Enigma Palace, the old man with the Confucian crown nodded repeatedly with a shocked expression. Even with his eyesight, it was difficult for him to comprehend the obscurities behind those actions in a short period of time. However, the old man was clear that if one cultivated the technique and had sufficient endowments, those mortals without spirit roots would definitely be able to form a core using this half of the Martial Sutra. After forming a core, all paths would lead to the same goal. No sect would reject the inclusion of a golden core. Although there was only half of the Martial Sutra, after any mortal cultivated to the 6th transformation of the martial Tao, they could join any sect to cultivate the spirit refinement techniques thereafter. One would break free from the shackles of a spirit root once their core was formed. Su Zimo's cultivation realm was only at the void reversion realm, and it was already his limit to be able to deduce the cultivation techniques and secret skills required for core formation. Therefore, there was only half of the Martial Sutra. 7th transformation of the martial Tao, astral infusion. From then on, the difficulty of cultivation increased exponentially, and even if there were 10,000 people, there might not be a single person who could cultivate it successfully. Of course, if they succeeded in cultivation, their combat strength would increase tremendously. 8th transformation of the martial Tao, indestructible diamond. This transformation was even more terrifying. Although it was not beyond the realm of core formation, one's body would be indestructible like a diamond and possess shocking regeneration capabilities with an immensely strong bloodline. 9th transformations of the martial Tao, dragon elephant force. This was the final transformation of the martial Tao. At its peak, one's strength was comparable to a divine dragon and elephant. Even at the 9th transformation of the martial Tao, one was not beyond the core formation realm. How terrifying was it for a golden core to possess the power of the divine dragon and elephant? The final 9 golden words were displayed in midair and froze slowly. The 81 golden words transformed into 81 small golden figures that stood in midair. They shone with a brilliance that seemed eternal. At that point, Su Zimo paused and took a deep breath before continuing. The later 3 transformations of the 9 transformations are extremely difficult and cannot be forced. If you want to continue cultivating, it would suffice just to cultivate to the 6th transformation to condense an essence spirit. Unbelievable! In 100 Refinement Sect, Mighty Figure Extreme Fire was shocked and said slowly, "Even I feel that the power contained in this half of the Martial Sutra is mysterious and I look forward to it. If I can cultivate again, I'll definitely try to cultivate this martial Tao. The merit of creating this is comparable to the eternal human emperor." Another conjoint body Mighty Figure lamented. Mighty Figure Extreme Fire said, "The rarest thing is that Zimo did not hide anything at all and spread this half of the Martial Sutra to the entire world. Even I can't compare to his magnanimity." In the cultivation world, nobody would casually impart any cultivation techniques or insights they had. However, this half of the Martial Sutra that Su Zimo spent 5,000 years to tirelessly deduce, he imparted it without holding anything back at all. Desolate Martial wishes to establish a Tao and impart martial arts to all living beings. Desolate Marshal imparted his Tao and brought blessings to the entire world. Chapter 12:16 Fruit of the Martial Tao. Chapter 12:16 Fruit of the Martial Tao. The path of the Martial Tao was long and Su Zimo merely deduced the beginning. However, the passing of this half of the Martial Sutra was equivalent to completing the grand wish he made back then. For all living beings in the world, as long as they were willing to, they could cultivate the Martial Sutra. After forming a core, they could choose according to their heart, cultivating immortal, Buddhist or fiend cultivation. All living beings could cultivate. This was equivalent to giving everyone a chance to change their fates. Against cultivators, demon beasts and calamities, even the most ordinary mortals would be able to protect themselves and would no longer be at the mercy of others. Bro, did you see that? In the stone statue cemetery, Su Zimo murmured softly. His old face had a complicated expression. There were emotions, regrets and longing. Sigh. He sighed deeply. It's time to leave. He had 50 more years to live. That bit of lifespan was insignificant for void reversions who had 5,000 years of lifespan. The flame of life in his body could extinguish at any moment. Su Zimo had no confidence of advancing to the Dharma characteristic realm in that condition. Under normal circumstances, breaking through a major cultivation realm as such was extremely difficult. Only when a cultivator's blood chi was strong and their entire life was at its peak could they succeed in breaking through. For void reversions, once they were over 4,000 years old, they were considered to be in their later years, let alone someone with only 50 years of lifespan remaining. There were extremely few people who could break through to the Dharma characteristic realm after 4,000 years old. Su Zimo was already 4,950 years old and was only hanging on by a thread. Right then. The 81 golden figures in the skies transformed into streaks of golden light and returned to the stone statue cemetery, gathering before Su Zimo. In the blink of an eye, all 81 of them fused together to form a palm-sized golden ball that shone with a bedazzling light. What is this? Su Zimo was momentarily stunned. He actually had a bloodline connection to the golden ball. Could that be a Tao fruit? A thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind as he recalled some of the records he had read in the ancient books at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley. Legend has it that before passing away, some accomplished monks would condense their lifetime's worth of cultivation essence into Tao fruits and leave them in the form of relics for fated people. That was an extremely high realm. Even Mahayana patriarchs could not do it, let alone Su Zimo. What was even stranger was that there was a faint fluctuation of life coming from the golden fruit that was different from the Tao fruits in the legends. In reality, Su Zimo's guess was not wrong. That golden fruit was the fruit of the martial Tao. Ordinary Tao fruits contained the essence of a cultivator's cultivation and contained many legacy secret skills and insights. It was impossible for those Tao fruits to possess any fluctuations of life. However, Su Zimo's situation was different. That Tao fruit did not condense the essence of his cultivation, but the profoundness of the martial Tao. Not only that, the Tao fruit received the augmentation of a vow that contained the will of the martial Tao as well as the beliefs of the masses. The culmination of those various powers produced a martial Tao fruit filled with the vibrancy of life. This was an unprecedented phenomenon even in the 3,000 worlds, let alone Tianhuang mainland. This martial Tao fruit could be considered as an anomaly beyond the three realms and was not part of the five elements. It was unprecedented. Su Zimo looked at the golden fruit before him and pondered for a long time. Unable to make out anything, he put it away in his storage bag. Thereafter, Su Zimo dragged his aged body and walked out of the cemetery step by step. Outside the Three Tribulations domain, many cultivators were gathered there, discussing fervently. Desolate Marshal should have deduced the martial Tao in this Tao inheritance ground, right? It should be. This dimensional tear is still around. Strange, it's less than 15 years since the battle between Desolate Marshal and Xian Yu. Why would Desolate Marshal say that he has spent close to 5,000 years? Those cultivators had not only come out of curiosity, but also because of the orders of their sects. Among them were cultivators from the 10 upper sects and aristocratic families of the North region. Right now, Su Zimo was definitely an important figure in the entire cultivation world, especially in the North region. Back then, after the battle with Xian Yu, He was encircled by many conjoint body mighty figures, but he managed to escape unscathed. The death of 6 mighty figures without exception was still a mystery among the upper sects. 4 sects and factions such as Dragon Tiger Sect and Dark Ghost Sect who had offended Su Zimo in the past, they were even more concerned about Su Zimo's situation and activity out of guilt. As the crowd discussed, a figure gradually appeared in the 3 tribulations domain. Under the Een wind, he staggered as though he could fall at any moment. The clamor gradually quietened down. All the cultivators watched fixedly. Before long, the figure gradually became clear and had already exited the 3 tribulations domain. It was an old man with white hair and a face filled with wrinkles. His eyes had turned cloudy and his blood chi was weak. The old man's spine was slightly bent and he was hunched. After close to 5,000 years, that skinny and aged body could no longer support the worn green robes on his body. The cultivators were stunned and opened their mouths slightly. Everyone's eyes were filled with disbelief. This was Tao being desolate martial. Was this the once invincible monster incarnate who killed many titular disciples here and looked down on the world? Was this the peerless paragon that could be reborn after being killed by a half-martial ancestor expert? None of the cultivators could see the image of Su Zimo anymore. The sharpness, drive and dominance of the past seemed to have vanished without a trace after 5,000 years. The only thing that was familiar about the old man was his green robes. All the cultivators present could tell with a single sweep of their spirit consciousness that Su Zimo was at the end of his lifespan and was on the brink of death. Ha 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 ha. Finally, some cultivators could not help but burst into laughter. Desolate Marshal, oh desolate Marshal, you were once domineering and arrogant. To think that this day would come for you. This is karma. A series of sarcastic remarks sounded from the crowd. All these years, these so-called paragons were suppressed too badly by Su Zimo. That name had already become a nightmare for many cultivators that they could not forget. The titular disciples of the various super sects were killed by Su Zimo single-handedly. As long as Su Zimo was alive, they would always be beneath him. Sigh, what a pity. A cultivator shook his head gently and lamented, to think that even a monster incarnate like Desolate Marshal wouldn't be able to escape the sands of time. I wonder what he experienced to end up with such an outcome. To impart martial arts to all living beings is something that defies the heavens and is extremely difficult. I'm sure that Desolate Marshal has expended all his effort for the half-martial Sutra. Some people gloated, some lamented and some watched coldly from the sidelines. The behavior of humans no longer caused any stirs in Su Zimo's heart. He smiled faintly and arrived before the dimensional tear. Without looking at everyone, he strode in and vanished. Chapter 12:17 Returned. Chapter 12:17 Return. The news of Su Zimo's appearance in the Tao Inheritance Ground spread through the entire cultivation world rapidly. In the depths of a bamboo forest, there was a simple wooden house. It's a pity that my brother Su had to exhaust his lifespan in order to establish the martial Tao and change the fates of the living beings in the world. At the entrance of the wooden house, a man with a cold expression leaned against the wall and shook his head gently, sighing. I wonder if it was all worth it in the end. From the wooden house, a white-bloused woman walked out with a steaming bowl of medicine and handed it to the man. The man received it naturally. The white-bloused woman sat beside the man and looked at his face with a pitiable expression, saying somewhat reproachfully, "And you're talking about him? Aren't you the same?" "What about me?" the man asked in surprise. The white-bloused woman replied, "You gave me the 9 revolutions soul return elixir. However, your own essence spirit injuries have yet to recover." She pursed her lips after a momentary pause and asked, "Was it worth it?" "Ha ha." The man laughed and drank the medicine in the bowl. "Of course it's worth it. Someone has been taking care of me all these years and I don't even have to return to the sect." "You." The white-bloused woman blushed and thumped the man on the shoulder with an embarrassed expression. However, immediately after, she looked worried and sighed gently. "Essence spirit injuries are the most difficult to heal. I wonder if there's any solution." "It's best if there isn't any," the man mumbled. "Nonsense." The white-bloused woman frowned. "Your cultivation can't advance and your combat strength will be greatly reduced if your essence spirit's injuries can't heal completely. How can that do?" Once my essence spirit injuries heal, you'll head back, right? The man asked in a seemingly casual manner. The white-bloused woman smiled with a gentle look in her eyes. To think that this was what the man was worried about. Leaning against the man gently, she murmured, "Don't worry, the so-called immortal sects and the people there have completely disappointed me. I'll never return again." 100 Refinement Sect. Mighty figure Extreme Fire stood at the entrance of the hall, and listened to the news from his disciples for a long time in silence. "Grandmaster, my condolences." Tao Lord Scarlet Star said. "Uncle Master left behind the legacy of the martial Tao. Even if he dies in meditation, it'll be a good ending without any regrets." Mighty figure Extreme Fire was silent. Although he had witnessed the deaths of countless people, he still felt a sense of sadness when he heard that Su Zimo's lifespan was almost up. Dragon Tiger Sect. What? The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect stood up suddenly and his heart skipped a beat. His gaze intensified as he glared at a disciple below and asked in a deep voice, "Are you sure that Desolate Marshal only has 50 years left to live?" "It's absolutely true." The Dragon Tiger Sect cultivator nodded. "It's not just me." Many cultivators outside the Three Tribulations domain detected it as well. "There's absolutely no mistake. In that case, Desolate Marshal won't live for long." The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect sat back slowly with a skeptical expression. Ever since the annihilation of the 6 conjoint body mighty figures more than 10 years ago, the name Desolate Marshal had always rattled him and he could not sleep well. He was afraid that one day, Desolate Marshal would suddenly enter the Dharma characteristic realm and come knocking. He had even dreamed of such a scene over the years. According to the Grand Elder of the sect, if Desolate Marshal were to advance to the Dharma characteristic realm, no one in the sect would be able to defend against the latter. But now, the sudden news of Desolate Marshal's exhausting lifespan after just more than 10 years left the sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect in skepticism. This great foe who caused him restless nights was about to die. Sect master. The cultivator below pondered for a moment and asked, "Could Desolate Marshal be using some trick to confuse us?" "There's no need for that." The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect shook his head. After a brief pause he continued, "However, Desolate Marshal isn't dead yet. He still has 50 years of lifespan left. This means that he still has a chance to enter the Dharma characteristic realm. If he enters the Dharma characteristic realm and his lifespan extends to 10,000 years, he will be reborn." "That's impossible." An elder beside the sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect shook his head. "Even if he has 500 years left, it'll be difficult for him to break through a major cultivation realm, let alone the fact that he only has 50 years left." "Even so, I'm still worried." The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect narrowed his eyes and said sternly, "After all, he's Desolate Marshal, the one who established the martial Tao. It's not surprising for anything to happen to him." "What are your plans?" the sect elder asked. "Go and gather more information and see what Desolate Marshal's next move is." The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect said, "If there's a chance, kill him. He still has 50 years of lifespan left and we can't give him any chances." "Sect master, aren't you afraid of offending the Mahayana patriarch behind him?" The sect elder frowned. Back then, there was already bad blood after the 6 conjoint body mighty figures tried to kill Desolate Marshal. If you attack again, there's probably no room for negotiation between us and Desolate Marshal anymore. "Humph." The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect sneered. "Elder son, you're too cowardly. I'll attack in a completely justifiable manner this time round. Even the Mahayana patriarch behind Desolate Marshal won't be able to vent his anger on me. Desolate Marshal is still at the Void Reversion Realm right now. If I send cultivators of the sect at the Void Reversion Realm to challenge him openly, that won't be bullying." The sect elder shook his head in silence. Although he was an elder of Dragon Tiger Sect, he thought to himself that it was vicious. Although Desolate Marshal was indeed at the Void Reversion Realm, he was already 4,950 years old and his lifespan was almost up. His blood chi was deteriorating and he did not have much combat strength. Right now, any random void reversion could most probably kill him. This was a blatant plot. That Desolate Marshal is at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley and probably won't come out again with another 50 years to his lifespan. The elder of Dragon Tiger Sect shook his head. I'm afraid you won't stand a chance even if you harbor such intentions. I won't force things. The sect master of Dragon Tiger sect waved it off. If there's no chance, forget it. I can't possibly head to the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley to kill. Bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley. Su Zimo returned to the familiar courtyard. Monk Yuan Bei had been waiting there for a long time. The two old men exchanged glances. Suddenly, Su Zimo smiled. He looked slightly worse than Monk Yuan Bei. This proved that at the very least, Monk Yuan Bei had more than 50 years to live. However, Monk Yuan Bei could not return Su Zimo's smile. You must be tired. Go and have a good sleep. Monk Yuan Bei sighed gently. All right. Su Zimo nodded in agreement. He had not rested for all these years. Even if he was extremely exhausted, he merely took a nap during his deduction in the stone statue cemetery. Now that he was back at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley, he could finally have a good night's sleep. Su Zimo entered the main hall and collapsed on the ground, breathing steadily. Monk Yuan Bei turned around and returned to the cemetery in the backyard. The red-headed ghost grinned with a smug expression. That's fate. Once that lad's green lotus true body dies along with him, he'll only be someone of the dragon race from this day forth. Chapter 12:18, Martial Dao True Body. Chapter 12:18, Martial Dao True Body. The red-headed ghost did not care if the green lotus true body died for the Dao. Everything was fine as long as the dragon true body was fine. However, Monk Yuan Bei sighed internally with a look of pity. Su Zimo was a human after all. The death of his green lotus true body would mean that the last traces of his connection to the human race would vanish as well. His essence, spirit, bloodline and soul would no longer belong to the human race. Monk Yuan Bei could not bear it. However, even with his capabilities, he could not save Su Zimo. With less than 50 years of lifespan remaining, his blood qi was weak, his body would age and his essence spirit would wither. It was impossible for him to break through to the Dharma characteristic realm. Zimo can pass down his Dao to all living beings. Even if his green lotus true body is sacrificed for the Dao, it will remain eternal, Monk Yuan Bei said. The red-headed ghost nodded. I do admire him for that. The fact that he's able to create the martial Dao given his cultivation, and allow all mortals of the human race to cultivate is an unimaginable merit for the human race. That half of the martial sutra alone is enough for him to match the human emperor. In the blink of an eye, 10 days passed. Su Zimo slept for 10 days in the grand hall of the old temple before waking up. He was too tired after 5,000 years of deduction. If not for some obsession in his heart, there was a high chance that he would have fallen asleep and never woke up. The old monk was waiting beside Su Zimo. When he saw Su Zimo awake, he asked with a kind expression, Zimo, what are your plans from now on? I've got to leave. Su Zimo said softly, I'm going to return to Pingyang town. His lifespan was almost up. If he could not break through, it would be best if his green lotus true body was buried in his courtyard in Pingyang town beside his older brother, Su Hong. Monk Yuan Bei could read Su Zimo's mind and sighed internally. A fox dies in its hole and a leaf lands at its roots. This might be the best outcome for Su Zimo upon returning to Pingyang town. Don't worry, master, I haven't given up. Sensing the sadness in Monk Yuan Bei's heart, Su Zimo smiled gently. I still have a chance to break through in the remaining 50 years. For anyone else, it was impossible for them to break through with the remaining 50 years of lifespan. However, that was not impossible for Su Zimo. That was because after 5,000 years, he had accumulated more than 30 top-secret inheritances of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects. There was also the creation lotus platform in his consciousness. Although Su Zimo's blood qi was deteriorating and his body was aging, his essence spirit did not wither under the nourishment of the creation lotus platform. His essence spirit could still sense heaven and earth. Those were his backing. Of course, his lifespan was still too short and Su Zimo had no confidence of breaking through either. That was the reason why he chose to return to Pingyang town. It would naturally be best if he could succeed. However, if he failed, it could be considered as returning to his hometown. He still had his dragon true body and there was still a chance for him to meet Dai Yu. It was not a bad outcome as well. Furthermore, Tao Yao was still waiting for him in Pingyang town. Right then, Su Zimo's heart stirred. As though he sensed something, he touched his storage bag and took out a golden fruit. This is... Monk Yuanbei focused his gaze. The golden fruit gave off a mysterious aura that even he could not identify. He sighed gently. What was even stranger was that there was a life force surging out from the golden fruit. It was increasingly clear and intense, as though it could gush out at any moment. Su Zimo's eyes widened as well. It felt as though something was about to be born from the golden fruit. Crack, crack, crack. All of a sudden, cracks appeared on the surface of the golden fruit. There was a thud, as though something was knocking on the shell of the fruit. Before long, many shards fell off and a pink and tender infant gradually appeared. Lying in Su Zimo's palm, it clenched its fists and waved its arms. Su Zimo and Monk Yuanbei were stunned. What was going on here? Su Zimo frowned in deep thought and a guess gradually formed in his mind. As for Monk Yuanbei, he had a shocked expression and glared at the infant's moving arms for a moment. The shock in his eyes intensified. How is that possible? He was dumbfounded when he realized that the infant's arms were not flaying wildly. Its tender arms moved with an obscure trajectory, as though they could trigger the most mysterious power in the world. Those actions looked familiar. Monk Yuanbei pondered for a moment and his heart skipped a beat. Those motions and postures were secret body tempering techniques that Su Zimo had created in the Martial Sutra. Su Zimo also vaguely realized that this infant might be a life form that was born after the martial Dao fruit gained sentience. At the same time, Su Zimo was the origin of the martial Dao fruit itself. The moment that thought crossed his mind, the infant stopped waving its arms and opened its eyes. At that moment, an extremely mysterious connection was formed between Su Zimo and the infant. The connection was no different from the one between the green lotus true body and the dragon true body. Ordinary Dao fruits would not gain sentience nor would they possess any signs of life. As for the martial Dao fruit, it was augmented by grand wishes, martial intent and the faith of all living beings. By chance it gave birth to a spirit, intellect and life itself. This infant that was born from the martial Dao was Su Zimo as well. Su Zimo was elated. Initially, he had some regrets after deducing the martial Dao and creating half of the Martial Sutra. After all, be it the green lotus true body or the dragon true body, it was extremely difficult for them to cultivate to this stage. Their Dao foundations were firm and there was no way for him to cripple their cultivations to cultivate anew. In other words, although Su Zimo was the one who founded the martial Dao, he did not have the chance to cultivate it. Furthermore, he had already resolved the problem of mortals without spirit roots not being able to cultivate after deducing half of the Martial Sutra. Yet, he would no longer have the energy to continue deducing from no one. Now that he had this infant, all his problems were resolved. That infant was born because of the martial Dao and was born for the martial Dao. The infant's cultivation path was completely blank and he could cultivate the martial Dao and continue to deduce the martial Dao after the 9 transformations. Similar to the dragon true body and green lotus true body, the infant was a martial Dao true body. To a certain extent, the infant was the true Su Zimo. That was because the infant inherited his ambitions, determination, pride, Dao heart and even his martial Dao. Be it the dragon true body or the green lotus true body, in truth, both had already deviated from the true Su Zimo by this point of their cultivations. The dragon true body was not a human, but a dragon. The green lotus true body was also a body made from the stem and leaves of the lotus. None of them could be considered as Su Zimo. Prior to this, it was difficult for Su Zimo to determine which of the 2 true bodies was his true self. That was the reason why he had not established either as the prime body. The moment he caught sight of the infant, Su Zimo no longer hesitated. This martial Dao true body was him. Among the 3 true bodies, the martial Dao true body was his prime body. His prime body would break free from the restraints of the dragon true body and green lotus true body completely and deduce his own Dao, creating an unprecedented glory. Even Dai Yu could not predict Su Zimo's future from this point on. Chapter 1219. Final Arrangements. Chapter 1219. Final Arrangements. When he sensed the commotion in the hall, the red-headed ghost could not help but run over. Where did this child come from? He widened his eyes and sized up Monk Yuanbei and Su Zimo, muttering. He was only gone for a short while. How did a child appear out of nowhere from these two old men? A chill ran down the red-headed ghost's spine and he shook his head hurriedly, casting that thought away. Although the prime body was only a newborn baby, it did not cry or shout. Instead, it watched Monk Yuanbei and the red-headed ghost silently without any fear through its jet-black eyes. Pausing for a moment, it grabbed the broken skin of the golden fruit and stuffed it into its mouth. The broken fruit skin was a great tonic as well. When the red-headed ghost saw that, he could not help but click his tongue in wonder. He had lived for so long but he had never encountered such a situation. As he looked at the infant, he felt that he was not facing a child, but a mature and unfathomable existence. How could that be? On the other side, Monk Yuanbei's expression changed slightly as he murmured. "What's wrong?" the red-headed ghost asked. Monk Yuanbei pointed at the prime body and said sternly, "I can't read that infant's mind at all." Monk Yuanbei was a Mahayana patriarch and cultivated the great divine power of the Buddhist monasteries, heart-peering, allowing him to read the minds of others with ease. As long as Monk Yuanbei released that divine power, there would be no secret against him. However, when Monk Yuanbei released his heart-peering earlier on to check out what the infant was made of, he realized that he could not read the infant's mind at all. As a Mahayana patriarch, he could not even see through an infant. If news of this were to spread, it would definitely cause an uproar. Su Zimo smiled without replying. The existence of the prime body was a variable. It was beyond the 3 realms and 5 elements. Even the patriarch of Enigma Palace who specialized in divination would not be able to see through the prime body, let alone Monk Yuanbei's heart-peering. Nobody could divine the fate of the prime body. With the existence of his prime body, it would not be a loss for Su Zimo even if his Green Lotus true body died for the Tao. Of course he would not give up. If his Green Lotus true body could enter the Dharma characteristic realm, the benefits of his deduction of the martial Tao would be immense. Who is that infant? The red-headed ghost could not help but ask. He is Meal. Su Zimo smiled gently. Ah! The red-headed ghost was stunned. It's like the Green Lotus true body and the existence of the Dragon true body. This infant is my martial Tao true body, Su Zimo explained simply. Monk Yuanbei and the red-headed ghost were in deep thought. Legend has it that among the immortal Buddhist and fiend sects of the upper world, there were top-tier cloning techniques such as the 3 pures of the immortal sects, the 3 corpses of the fiend sects, the past, present and future bodies of the Buddhist monasteries. But now by chance, Su Zimo managed to deduce 3 true bodies exclusive to him. How about leaving this child here to accompany us? The red-headed ghost could not help but say. I'm almost going to throw up looking at this old monk all day. This child can accompany me instead. Sure. Su Zimo agreed readily. Although his prime body was the martial Tao true body, it was in the form of an infant and could not protect itself. It was the best choice to stay at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley to cultivate with the protection of Monk Yuanbei and the red-headed ghost. Zimo, you're still going back? Monk Yuanbei asked. Yes. Su Zimo nodded. Take care. Yuanbei did not say much and merely reminded. Su Zimo laughed self-deprecatingly. I'm almost at the end of my lifespan. Even those great enemies of the past won't be bothered to attack me, right? With that said, Su Zimo bowed deeply to Monk Yuanbei and the red-headed ghost, leaving his prime body behind before turning to leave. After returning to the North region, he did not have much time and did not bid farewell to any old friends. He summoned his spirit vessel and sped towards Pingyang town. Thankfully, his essence spirit did not wither under the nourishment of the Creation Lotus platform. Otherwise, controlling the spirit vessel for such a long time would consume his life rapidly. This day, a gray-haired old man in green arrived at Pingyang town. Standing in front of Pingyang town, the old man gazed at the town and murmured emotionally, "Big brother, I'm back." "Grandpa, I'm sorry." A child who ran out of Pingyang town bumped into Su Zimo's embrace and bowed hurriedly, apologizing with a blushed face. No worries. Su Zimo smiled gently. The child seemed to feel guilty as he pointed to the town and whispered, Grandpa, let me tell you a secret. There's a peach blossom immortal in Pingyang town. You can stay in the town for a period of time. If you're lucky and bump into the peach blossom immortal, you can live for dozens of years after eating the peach he gives you. Thank you. Su Zimo smiled, rubbed the child's forehead and stepped into Pingyang town. Some of the Pingyang town elders looked at Su Zimo's back view and felt that it was familiar. However, they shook their heads and denied it immediately. When Su Zimo arrived at the courtyard, a tender voice hollered before he could enter. Who are you? A tender child suddenly appeared and blocked in front of Su Zimo, looking at him angrily. No one is allowed in here. Su Zimo remained silent and merely smiled at the boy. Even after more than 10 years, Tao Yao still looked like a child without any changes. Why you are? Young master? Tao Yao widened his eyes in shock. Thereafter, Tao Yao sniffed and no longer had any doubts. Instantly, his eyes reddened and he sobbed. Young master, you're back. I'm so happy. But your lifespan. Tao Yao hurriedly took out a huge bunch of peaches from his storage bag and placed them all in Su Zimo's embrace, urging repeatedly, Young master, eat. Eat them all. Tao Yao's peaches could increase a mortal's lifespan by dozens of years. However, they were of little use to Su Zimo. Su Zimo did not decline and took over the peaches. He took a huge bite and praised, Not bad. Tao Yao said nothing and merely sobbed. He could sense Su Zimo's twilight aura. He was afraid that he would never see Su Zimo again. I am fine. Su Zimo wiped away the tears on Tao Yao's face and said gently, I'm going to give you a mission. Tell me, young master. Tao Yao pursed his lips and nodded vigorously. Su Zimo said, I want to cultivate here and prepare for my final breakthrough. I must not be disturbed during this period of time and you must guard me here. All right. Tao Yao's expression was resolute. I'll definitely not let anyone disturb you. After a moment of silence, Su Zimo hesitated for a moment before saying, If I fail in my breakthrough and my lifespan is up, you don't have to feel sad. Just bury me in this courtyard. To be fair, even he was not confident of entering the Dharma characteristic realm. He had to prepare for his final arrangements. You won't die, young master. Tao Yao cried again and shook his head fervently. Chapter 12:20. Tao Yao's Fury. Chapter 12:20. Tao Yao's Fury. Dragon Tiger Sect. Master, I received definite news that Desolate Marshal has already left the Dragon Burial Valley and returned to Pingyang town. He hasn't appeared since. A tall disciple said in a deep voice. The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect sat on a high seat and nodded slightly with a cold glint in his eyes. An elder said in a deep voice, In that case, Desolate Marshal must have sensed that his lifespan was about to end and decided to return to his roots. There's no need for the sect master to deal with a person who's about to die. Desolate Marshal will always remain a huge problem to the Dragon Tiger Sect as long as he's not dead. The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect had a sharp gaze. Previously, our sect participated in the fight between the dynasties and attacked Ethereal Peak. The mighty figure of our sect even tried to kill Desolate Marshal. How can he let things go after these grudges were sowed? I won't be at ease unless I see Desolate Marshal die with my own eyes. The elder wanted to continue persuading. However, he saw that the sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect was resolute and seemed to have made up his mind. He sighed internally and shook his head in silence. What about Pingyang town? The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect asked again. No, the tall disciple said. I loitered around there for a long time, but there are only mortals in the town. Although their lifespans are longer, none of them cultivated before. Oh, there are many peach blossom trees surrounding the town as well. In other words, Desolate Marshal doesn't have anyone protecting him. The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect narrowed his eyes and murmured. After pondering for a moment, the sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect looked at the tall disciple below and ordered decisively, Tianjie, you're my eldest disciple. You've joined my sect for many years and are the number one of the void reversion realm in the sect. I'll leave this heavy responsibility to you. Understood. The disciple named Tianzhi replied in a deep voice. The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect said, choose another 10 void reversion disciples with extraordinary combat strength to accompany you. You must not lose this time round. Shall I infiltrate Pingyang town and wait for an opportunity to strike? Tianzhi asked. The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect sneered coldly and shook his head. There's no need for you to hide your tracks. Head over straight and say that you're visiting Dao being Desolate Marshal and want to spar with him. Desolate Marshal is a prideful person with a sharp edge. Up till this point of his cultivation, he has never been defeated. Even if he's in his twilight years, he won't fear you and will definitely accept the challenge and fight you. Tianzhi understood and said, at that time, I can kill him openly. That's right. A killing intent flashed through the sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect's eyes as he continued, if the situation doesn't seem right, all of you will gang up and kill him. Pausing for a moment, he continued indifferently, if you can kill Desolate Marshal, all his treasures will belong to you. Tianzhi's eyes lit up. After Desolate Marshal imparted the Tao, the mortal world was shaken and became extraordinarily lively. All living beings in the world wanted to attain immortality. Who wouldn't want to live forever? However, most mortals did not have the chance or qualifications to become immortals. But now, with such an opportunity placed before them, who wouldn't be tempted? Almost every mortal would attempt to cultivate the martial Tao. However, although the martial sutra was the same, everyone had different endowments and different levels of comprehension. Some mortals could comprehend the obscurities within. However, some mortals could only comprehend the basics. There were also many mortals who did not understand. It was the same in Pingyang town. Be it men, women, old or young, all of them tried to cultivate the martial sutra. Unexpectedly, it was much easier for the mortals in the town to cultivate the martial sutra, and they required less effort. This day, 11 uninvited guests arrived outside Pingyang town. Those cultivators had powerful auras and did not hide their tracks. Wearing the robes of Dragon Tiger Sect, their leader was a burly man. It was Dao being Tianzhi of Dragon Tiger Sect. Under Tianzhi's lead, 10 void reversions strode towards Pingyang town. Before they arrived at the town, the peach blossom branches intertwined and stopped them as though they were alive. Everyone, please return. Entry and exit to Pingyang town is forbidden during this period of time. A slightly tender voice sounded. Tianzhi sneered internally and ignored that voice. Instead, he said loudly, I'm Dao being Tianzhi of Dragon Tiger Sect. I've long heard of Desolate Marshal's great name. I'm here specially to visit. Please accept my visit, Desolate Marshal. What are you shouting for? With a whoosh, a boy appeared at the entrance of the town, frowning slightly and looking at Tianzhi and the others somewhat angrily. Kid, who are you? A void reversion asked with a grin. I'm Tao Yao and I serve my young master. The boy replied seriously. Although Tao Yao did not say who his young master was, Tianzhi and the others could guess. Tianzhi grinned. Kid, hurry back and inform your young master that I'm here to visit. He does not welcome any guests right now. Everyone, please return. Tao Yao cupped his fists politely still. The smile on Tianzhi's face widened. The fact that Desolate Marshal was unwilling to meet them was further proof that he did not have much lifespan remaining. He had absolute confidence of killing a dying man. Tianzhi's expression darkened as killing intent seeped out. He said sinisterly, Kid, you can't make the decision for this matter. If you dare stand in our way, don't blame us for being impolite. Initially, he thought that the boy would definitely be scared out of his wits if he revealed any bit of ferocity after his threat. Unexpectedly, Tao Yao did not show the slightest bit of fear. Instead, his expression turned stiff. You guys wish to harm my young master? Tao Yao was inexperienced in the ways of the world and was indeed pure and kind. However, he was no fool. Senior brother, why are you getting entangled with a kid like him? A void reversion strode forward and reached out for Tao Yao's throat. We can just kill a kid like this with ease. You guys are truly up to no good. Tao Yao looked at the void reversion's extended palm and suddenly attacked without warning. His seemingly skinny arm suddenly rested on the void reversion's arm. A coil and a tremble. Crack, crack, crack. The jarring sound of bones cracking could be heard. Right in front of Tianzhe and the others, the Void Reversion's arm was snapped and more than half the bones in his arm were shattered. The Void Reversion only reacted after a brief pause. His expression was stiff as cold sweat poured down instantly. Ah! The person let out a tragic cry. Everyone, watch out. This kid has cultivated into a demon and is a fiend demon. Tianzhe cursed, damn it, I misjudged him. Leave quickly or don't blame me for being nasty. Tao Yao warned seriously. If it was Monkey and the others, they would have killed this group of people without a second word. However, Tao Yao was different. His hands had not been tainted by blood nor had he killed any living being. Right now, snapping the arm of the Void Reversion was the most severe move he had ever made. Chapter 12:21. Retreating in Defeat. Chapter 12:21. Retreating in Defeat. Junior Brother Qian. Another Void Reversion was enraged and withdrew a dermic weapon from his storage bag right away. He raised his gigantic axe with one hand and cleaved down at Tao Yao's head without any mercy. Tao Yao swayed and arrived before the Void Reversion instantly. It was too fast. At that moment, the Void Reversion had just raised his gigantic axe and it had yet to land. Tao Yao extended his arm and his seemingly tender palm landed on the person's chest. Snap! That person's chest caved in slightly and at least 8 bones were broken. The Void Reversion spat out blood and fell. Everyone, together. This fiend demon has some skills. Tianzhe retracted the contempt in his eyes and shouted with a grim expression. Summoning his destiny dermic weapon, a sinister long sword slashed towards Tao Yao. His sword was created from the blood of tens of thousands of demon beasts and was known as the Myriad Beast Blood Sword, a connate Dao being dermic weapon. A single slash could even conjure the faint phantom of 10,000 beasts. It was incomparably strong. Furthermore, the sword was extremely evil and contained the resentment and malevolent aura of all the beasts. Any cultivator that was careless would be affected mentally. This sword played a huge part in why he was able to become the #1 Void Reversion in Dragon Tiger Sect. At the same time, the remaining 8 Dragon Tiger Sect cultivators attacked as well. Some conjured hand seals. Some summoned dermic weapons and approached Tao Yao with strange steps, prepared to fight him in close combat and restrain him. Since they were from the same sect, their chemistry was flawless. Tao Yao's expression was unchanged as he scratched his chest. A small sword made of peach blossom wood and was as thin as a needle was revealed. The peach blossom sword was initially hung on his neck. Go! Tao Yao hollered softly. The peach blossom sword fell into the void and expanded instantly, turning 3 feet long. Its body shone with faint lightning as it collided with the Myriad Beast Blood Sword. Humph! Tianzhe sneered with a fierce gaze and hollered. How dare you take out a puny wooden sword to embarrass yourself? Break it! Countless dermic weapons had been destroyed by the Myriad Beast Blood Sword. The peach blossom sword was unassuming and there were no dermic patterns on it. Its power must be limited. Even a metal sword made of universal materials might not be able to withstand the sharpness of the Myriad Beast Blood Sword, let alone one made of peach blossom wood. Clang! The Myriad Beast Blood Sword collided against the peach blossom sword. There were no sparks. It was not as Tianzhe had imagined either. On the contrary, as though it was severely injured, the phantoms of the demon beasts were dispersed the moment they appeared. Not only that, the malevolent blood chi on the sword was suppressed completely. This! Tianzhe was dumbfounded. There was no way he knew that in the legends, peach blossom wood was an immortal wood that could purge ghosts and evil. It was the most effective against ferocious weapons like his. The 2 swords fought. The Myriad Beast Blood Sword was completely disadvantaged. At the same time, many dermic arts descended. Tao Yao was calm. With a stern expression, he waved his hands and his fingertips moved, forming pink flowers that looked extremely coquettish. The pink peach blossoms floated up and collided with the dermic arts. Although the dermic arts of Dragon Tiger Sect were terrifying, they were shattered by the peach blossoms and their dermic powers dissipated. Piak! Tao Yao's figure flashed and he extended his palm, slapping a Void Reversion heavily on the cheek. That single slap shattered half of the person's cheek. Bad guy. Tao Yao spat. Bang, bang, bang. His figure flashed consecutively and passed by everyone from Dragon Tiger Sect. He attacked decisively and figures were sent flying one after another in a wretched manner. Back then, even Monkey and the others were defeated by Tao Yao. Apart from Night Spirit, Monkey and the others were suppressed by Tao Yao. Dragon Tiger Sect specialized in body tempering. Although the physique and bloodline of those void reversions were strong, they were still far inferior compared to Tao Yao. In less than half an hour, 10 void reversions were defeated by Tao Yao. Bones cracked and everyone shrieked repeatedly. If Dao being Tianjia had not noticed that the situation was bad and escaped in time, he would have been suppressed by Tao Yao as well. You're not allowed to shout. Afraid that those cultivators would disturb Su Zimo's seclusion, Tao Yao hollered softly and pointed forward while conjuring hand seals with both hands. Trap. On the peach blossom trees on both sides of the road, many peach blossom branches grew wildly, forming cages that imprisoned the 10 void reversions. Thereafter, a fragrance wafted out from the peach blossoms on the tree branches. The cultivators turned drowsy and the pain on their bodies lessened instantly. All of them became dazed with lost gazes. I'll lock you bad guys here as a punishment, Tao Yao said seriously. Those void reversions were all paragons of Dragon Tiger Sect. Even in the cultivation world of the North region, they were famous figures. But now, all of those cultivators looked dispirited. Trapped in cages and hung on peach blossom trees by the road, they looked extremely wretched. Dao being Tianjia had long fled far away and felt relieved when he saw that. It was lucky that he escaped quickly. Otherwise, his outcome would be the same as his fellow sect mates. He would be hung on the peach blossom trees with no choice. This town is way too evil. His expression was terrible as he mumbled, I wonder where this peach blossom tree demon came from. To think that he's so strong. After pondering for a moment on the spot, Dao being Tianjia turned to leave. The situation was beyond his capabilities and expectations. Dragon Tiger Sect. What are you talking about? The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect slammed the table and stood up, saying in rage, the 11 of you were defeated by a void reversion peach blossom tree demon. That peach blossom tree was way too ruthless. We were no match for it at all. Dao being Tianjia felt bitter. The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect had a cold expression. Pondering for a moment, he grit his teeth and said, seems like I've got to get junior brother Fei Ming to make a trip. A Dharma characteristic Dao Lord? An elder at the side frowned. Sect master, aren't you afraid of angering the Mahayana patriarch of Dragon Burial Valley and implicating the sect by asking a Dharma characteristic Dao Lord to deal with Desolate Marshal? What are you afraid of? The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect said coldly, we're not asking junior brother Fei Ming to bring people over to deal with Desolate Marshal, but to kill that peach blossom tree demon first. When the peach blossom tree turns into a demon, it's meant to harm others. As people of the orthodox path, it's only right for us to slay demons. Who can question that? The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect had a clear mind. By killing Tao Yao, they would naturally be able to meet Su Zimo and deal with the latter using various means later on. Even so. The elder was about to persuade but was interrupted by the sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect. Elder, there's no need to say more. I've already decided. The sect master of Dragon Tiger Sect said in a deep voice, we've got to speed up on this matter. News of their defeat will spread very quickly and things might change if we drag on. True enough. Before long, the upper sects and aristocratic families of the North region as well as Ethereal Peak and the Great Zhou dynasty received the news. Desolate Marshal had already returned to Pingyang Town after leaving the Dragon Burial Valley, and the situation was unknown. Chapter 1222, Gathering. Chapter 1222, Gathering. Although Su Zimo was a void reversion, his every action would attract the attention of the major sects and factions of the North region. Desolate Marshal is in his twilight years and is already a foot into the coffin. However, he still has many treasures with him. We can't let him take those treasures with him. Once Desolate Marshal dies, His treasures will become ownerless and there will definitely be a bloodbath at that time. Who in the world did not want to become the second Dao being Desolate Marshal? When Su Zimo was strong and powerful, countless cultivators and sects coveted his treasures. Now that he was in his twilight years, countless cultivators and sects in the North region were tempted. I heard that Desolate Marshal has less than 50 years to his lifespan. Could he truly be able to advance to the Dharma characteristic realm? Absolutely impossible. If he cultivates his mind and rein in his desires, he might be able to live out the rest of his 50 years lifespan. If he insists on breaking through to the Dharma characteristic realm, he won't be able to live for more than a year. That's right. How difficult and dangerous is it to want to break through a major cultivation realm? Even at his peak, it's unknown if he can succeed. Furthermore, he's already near the end of his lifespan. Instantly, the cultivation world of the North region was discussing this matter. Dark Ghost Sect. Sect Master, should we head to Pingyong Town and fight for Desolate Marshal's belongings? A cultivator asked. Definitely. The Sect Master of Dark Ghost Sect said in a deep voice, Junior Brother Blackleather, lead 10 Dharma characteristic Dao Lords and 50 Void Reversions to Pingyong Town. Pausing for a moment he continued, however, if Desolate Marshal isn't dead, don't act rashly. Why? Dao Lord Blackleather was puzzled. A centipede dies but never falls completely. The Sect Master of Dark Ghost Sect said, who knows what else Desolate Marshal has up his sleeves? All you have to do is guard the vicinity. If Desolate Marshal dies, there's no need to hesitate and you can snatch his belongings right away. Understood. Dao Lord Blackleather replied in a deep voice. Almost at the same time, cultivators from Seven Kills Sect, Blood Mist Sect, Yuan Clan and other upper sects and aristocratic families rushed to Pingyong Town. Instantly, a storm brewed. This small Pingyong Town was targeted by countless sects, factions and paragons. Murong Aristocratic Family. The Murong family head shook his head gently and lamented. To think that a monster incarnate who founded the martial Dao and established such an immortal merit would end up in such a state. Family head, we've received news one after another that many cultivators from the upper sects are rushing over to fight for Desolate Marshal's belongings. Should we? A cultivator asked. No. The Murong family head shook his head. I once promised Desolate Marshal that if he could establish the martial Dao and allow all living beings in the world to cultivate, I'll pay a personal visit to congratulate him. Desolate Marshal is now in his twilight years and there's no longer any purpose in me extending my congratulations. His future outlook is already so grim. We must not hit him when he's down. That's right. An elder of the Murong family nodded. This is the respect that Desolate Marshal deserves. Among the 10 upper sects, Stellar Luna Sect, Blaze Columbus Valley and Heaven Motion Sect did not make any moves either. The sect masters of the 3 upper sects forbade cultivators from taking part in the matter as well. The capital of Great Zhou. 2 women stood side by side. One was gentle and beautiful while the other was noble and graceful. They were Su Xiaoning and the Empress of Great Zhou, Ji Yaoxue. Brother. Xiaoning looked in the direction of Pingyong Town with a worried expression. I have to go to Pingyong Town and see him for the last time. I'll accompany you. Ji Yaoxue replied. Sister Yaoxue, don't go. Pingyong Town is definitely in danger right now. You are the Empress and you must not take the risk, Xiaoning said. Even if it's extremely dangerous, I have to visit Zimo. Ji Yaoxue's tone was calm but extremely resolute. Xiaoning remained silent for a long time and did not continue persuading her. After making some arrangements for the Great Zhou dynasty, Ji Yaoxue set off with Xiaoning to Pingyong Town. Ethereal Peak. The old immortal Crane and Yan Qi left the sect right away and rushed to Pingyong Town. Wild Lion Ridge. Monkey and the others were gathered together with sorrowful expressions. Little Fox's eyes were red. It was clear that she had just cried. Seriously, first. He's willing to exhaust his lifespan just for that useless martial Dao. The spirit tiger was indignant. The moment she heard that, Little Fox wanted to cry again. Suddenly, Night Spirit said, actually, the situation isn't as bad as you guys think it to be. I heard from First that he has another true body. Even if his Green Lotus true body dies, First isn't dead. For real. Ugh. No matter if it's true or not, let's head to Pingyang Town first. I heard that some of the evildoers of the human race are preparing to snatch away First's belongings. Bloody hell. Monkey cursed. Let's go. Monkey's group moved instantly as well. Actually, there was a reason why Su Zimo left the Dragon Burial Valley and did not visit his kin such as Xiaoning and Monkey's group. He was already in a bad condition. The long journey from the Dragon Burial Valley to Pingyang Town was already his limit. He did not have the energy to travel around Wild Lion Ridge, Ethereal Peak and the capital of Great Zhou. Furthermore, given his current state, there were only two possibilities. First, a failed breakthrough. As Night Spirit had said, even if he failed his breakthrough, he still had his Dragon True body. More importantly, there was his Prime body. He was not dead. He would merely be adding to the sorrows of Xiaoning and the others by bidding them farewell. There was no need for that. The second scenario was a successful breakthrough. That way, there was even less need for him to bid farewell to Xiaoning and the others. At that moment, there was already a commotion outside Pingyang Town. Pingyang Town was still peaceful under Tao Yao's protection. The people in the town were still living their normal lives without being affected. In the courtyard, Su Zimo's breakthrough was at the most critical juncture. Dharma characteristic realm. In truth, it was a sort of conclusion to his past cultivation. The combination of all dharmic arts was a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. The reason why heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were so strong was because this Dharma characteristic contained all the comprehension, essence and power of a cultivator's past cultivation. Under normal circumstances, the conclusion process was extremely long and took a lot of mental energy. Some cultivators might not even be able to break through to the Dharma characteristic realm successfully after 500 years, let alone 50. However, Su Zimo's situation was different. He had obtained more than 30 stone statue inheritances in the Dao inheritance ground. Before he deduced the martial Dao, he had already summarized the cultivation of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects and had long mastered them. Without such a conclusion, it would be difficult for him to deduce his martial Daoj. Therefore, while this process was the most difficult for outsiders, it posed no challenge to Su Zimo. Although his body and blood qi were already deteriorating, his cultivation realm was rising rapidly and was infinitely close to the Dharma characteristic realm. The deduction of nearly 5,000 years was not wasted after all. The sands of time had long melted the barrier of the Dharma characteristic realm and all Su Zimo had to do was pass through it with ease. This breakthrough was going to be the easiest for Su Zimo ever since he started cultivating. Chapter 1223. Battle in front of the town. Chapter 1223. Battle in front of the town. This is Pingyang Town. On a mountain peak 5 kilometers away, there was a dark fog and figures could vaguely be seen. There were more than 100 of them. This town doesn't look like much. I wonder how a monster incarnate like Desolate Marshal was born here. I heard that a peach blossom tree demon with extraordinary strength guarded Pingyang Town. It guarded Desolate Marshal and even beat away Dao being Tianji of Dragon Tiger Sect. Heh! There are a few cages on the peach blossom tree, and those imprisoned within are void reversions of Dragon Tiger Sect. Within the black mist were Dao Lord Black Leather and the others of Dark Ghost Sect. Right then, Dao Lord Black Leather's expression changed as he looked towards the northwest. A red cloud was surging over with a nauseating stench. The people from Blood Mist Sect are here too. He harumphed. Look over there. The cultivators of 7 Kills Sect have appeared. This is going to be interesting. Once Desolate Marshal falls, Pingyang Town will definitely turn into rivers of blood. Many cultivators discussed softly. However, neither the cultivators of Dark Ghost Sect, Blood Mist Sect or 7 Kills Sect attempted to barge into Pingyang Town. They were waiting silently. They were waiting for Desolate Marshal to pass away. They could wait, but some people could not. Before long, Dao Lord Fei Ming of Dragon Tiger Sect arrived with close to 100 Dharma characteristic Dao Lords around him. They exuded a domineering might and were filled with killing intent. The expressions of Dao Lord Black Leather and the others changed slightly. Dragon Tiger Sect is going all out. Given the commotion, Most of the Dharma characteristic Tao Lords of Dragon Tiger Sect must be here, right? By the looks of it, Dragon Tiger Sect is going to barge in. That's for the best. If Dragon Tiger Sect kills Desolate Marshal, it'll save us time waiting here. At that time, we can just fight for Desolate Marshal's inheritance directly. Tao Lord Black Leather and the others conversed secretly. True enough. After Tao Lord Fei Ming descended, he looked down at Pingyong Town and waved his hand. With a cold gaze, he gave the order. There's a peach blossom tree in Pingyong Town that's evil. Fellow Taoists, kill it. Bad guy. Within Pingyong Town, Tao Yao appeared and hollered at Tao Lord Fei Ming and the others. He had never been so angry before. Even if fiend demons and cultivators had tried to disturb Pingyong Town in the past, all he did was chase them away. However, at that moment, Tao Yao was truly enraged. Why? His young master was already in his twilight years and did not have many years to live. Why were these bad guys so aggressive and ruthless? He was kind-hearted and could not understand. It's just a void reversion peach blossom tree. Let's see what you can do. A Dharma characteristic Tao Lord of Dragon Tiger Sect sneered and strode forward. Gripping his fist, he punched towards Tao Yao. Ah! Tao Yao shrieked and his blood chi burst forth. In fact, the sound of tsunamis could be heard coming from his body. Tsunami blood. Although Tao Yao was at the void reversion realm, his combat strength was unimaginable given the legacy of Dai Yu. He punched in reverse against the person's fist. Bang! The two fists collided. The Tao Lord of Dragon Tiger Sect was shocked and retreated repeatedly. His robes were torn and the skin on his arm was shredded, revealing streaks of blood. Pest! The surrounding cultivators gasped. Dragon Tiger Sect specialized in body tempering. A Tao Lord of Dragon Tiger Sect fought against a void reversion Tao being in melee combat and actually lost. The combat strength of this peach blossom tree demon was so terrifying. If it was a void reversion earlier on, Tao Yao's punch would have ruptured one of his arms. It's still useless. That's right. Even if the peach blossom tree demon can defeat a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Dragon Tiger Sect has more than 100 Dharma characteristic Tao Lords and the peach blossom tree won't be able to last long. Tao Lord Black Leather and the others calmed down and shook their heads. In midair, Tao Lord Fei Ming frowned slightly when he saw that before giving the order, everyone join forces. There's no need to hold back. He could sense that the number of cultivators gathered around Pingyong Town was increasing. There was no guarantee that nothing would happen if things dragged on. Dragon Tiger Clash. 7-star slash. Illumination Cruel Sun. More than 100 Dharma characteristic Tao Lords attacked at the same time and Dharmic arts descended one after another, covering the skies and causing the world to tremble. Tao Yao felt a strong sense of danger. His legacy was strong and his potential was limitless. However, his cultivation realm was limited at the end of the day and he still felt immense pressure against the attacks of more than 100 Dharma characteristic Tao Lords. It was almost suffocating. There was no time to think. Instinctively, Tao Yao reverted to his true form. Outside Pingyong Town, a gigantic peach blossom tree soared into the skies with lush leaves. Countless peach blossoms bloomed instantly and released Dharmic powers. Bang! 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 Earth-shaking explosions echoed when the many Dharmic arts collided against the blooming peach blossoms. Tao Yao shuddered. The strength of more than 100 Dharma characteristic Tao Lords was way too strong. Even he could not defend against it. He was already injured the moment they exchanged blows. However, Tao Yao refused to retreat at all. Pingyong Town was behind him. There were cute and kind citizens in Pingyong Town as well as his young master. He could not let those bad guys barge in. Invisible deep underground, thick roots extended and took root, locking onto the spot without retreating at all. Oh, you bad guys! The peach blossom tree shrieked with a hint of sadness. Branches danced and created afterimages in midair, buzzing and whipping towards Tao Lord Fei Ming and the others. Piak, piak, piak. Caught off guard, some Dharma characteristic Tao Lords were struck by the peach blossom tree branches and their clothes tore. Instantly, Blood scars appeared on their bodies and their bones were exposed as they were sent flying. Even though Tao Yao was truly enraged, he did not kill anyone. He could only cry out repeatedly, "Bad guys, leave. Don't force me anymore. Tao Yao, don't worry. We're here." A loud roar rose from the ground. Far away, a golden beam of light descended from the skies, carrying the might of thunder as it smashed into the crowd. The expressions of Tao Lord Fei Ming and the others changed as they dodged. Boom! The golden light descended and the ground quaked. A ravine was formed on the spot. A golden rod stood on the spot. Not far away, a monkey with long fur and bloodshot eyes leaped over. With each step, he would leap dozens of feet away and pound his chest heavily with his fists like hammers, letting out thumping sounds like heavenly drums. Behind the monkey was a fiend demon. It was a ferocious demon tiger. There was a mighty golden lion. There was also night spirit that flickered like a phantom. At the same time, the sound of a crane echoed. The old immortal crane of Ethereal Peak had descended. A golden-haired, green-eyed girl stood on the old immortal crane. Her body was filled with golden blood chi and her gaze was burning. Chapter 1224. Appearance of a Mighty Figure. Chapter 1224. Appearance of a Mighty Figure. Desolate Marshal's helpers are here. It's useless. Among them, only the old immortal crane is at the Dharma characteristic realm. The rest are all at the void reversion realm and won't be able to cause much trouble. It's hard to tell. That black-robed young man is extremely terrifying. Before his sentence was finished, Night Spirit's figure flashed in front of a Tao Lord of Dragon Tiger sect. In a flash, he reached out and grabbed the person's throat. The Tao Lord of Dragon Tiger sect widened his eyes in shock. He merely felt a shadow flash before him and his throat was crushed by Night Spirit before he could react. His blood chi was draining rapidly. It was not over yet. A terrifying ripping power surged into his mind through the wound on his throat and sliced his essence spirit into two. A Dharma characteristic Tao Lord did not even have the chance to escape with his essence spirit. Moreover, Night Spirit had already vanished. There was no pause in his actions from his appearance to his disappearance. Night Spirit was like a god of killing. On the other side, Monkey released the berserk power of his bloodline and his eyes were bloodshot. His strength increased exponentially and he wielded Imminent with both arms, charging into the crowd of more than 100 Dharma characteristic Tao Lords and dancing. In his berserk state, Monkey could neither feel pain nor danger. Instantly, the 100-odd Dharma characteristic Tao Lords were thrown into chaos. Night Spirit shuttled through the crowd and quickly seized an opportunity to kill another Dharma characteristic Tao Lord. He escaped unscathed and disappeared once more. On the side of Night Spirit and Monkey, they could take Dharma characteristic Tao Lords head-on and even kill the latter. The Spirit Tiger, Ching Ching, Little Fox and Golden Lion were not like them. However, the four of them had their own trump cards and could deal with some Dharma characteristic Tao Lords with all their might. Apart from Night Spirit and Monkey, Nian Qi had also displayed immense combat strength. The power of the God Race's bloodline was evident at this moment. Although Nian Qi's God Race bloodline was impure, the combat strength she displayed was not inferior to a true God Race being. Nian Qi possessed half of the God Race's bloodline and was able to carve her own path in the cultivation world. After Monkey and the others arrived, the situation was stabilized swiftly. On the side of Dragon Tiger sect, Dharma characteristic Tao Lords were dying one after another. The situation had already reversed. Although the battle outside Pingyang town was earth-shaking and blood splattered everywhere, it was still peaceful within Pingyang town. Before the battle, Tao Yao had already activated the formation of Pingyang town. This formation was left behind by Su Zimo in the past. How dare a group of fiend demons massacre human cultivators in the cultivation world? Right then, a roar exploded in the crowd like thunder. An irresistible pressure descended and enveloped Monkey and the others. The expressions of the cultivators from the various major sects and factions watching from afar changed. It's a conjoint body mighty figure. Tao Lord Black Leather of Dark Ghost sect said sternly. A figure stood above the clouds with his hands behind his back motionlessly. It was as though he had fused into the world and was unshakable. This was an aura that could only be conjured by conjoint body mighty figures. Seems like Dragon Tiger sect has gone all out. Conjoint body mighty figures are all the grand elders of the sect and rarely show themselves. To think that one would be invited out as well. Isn't Dragon Tiger sect afraid of the person at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley attacking? No. A cultivator said, the one in the Dragon Burial Valley is a patriarch of the Buddhist monasteries. The cultivator of Dragon Tiger sect isn't doing anything to desolate martial under the guise of slaying demons. What reason would that patriarch of the Buddhist monasteries have to attack? On the battlefield. After the arrival of the mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect, Monkey and the others slowed down instantly as though a massive mountain crushed on their backs. Even Night Spirit's tracks were forced out by the might of this mighty figure. The gaze of the mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect landed on Night Spirit instantly, sharp as a blade. He had lived for more than 10,000 years and a single glance was enough to determine the situation. He could tell that Night Spirit was the most troublesome to deal with among the fiend demons. As long as he killed Night Spirit, there was nothing to fear. Bastard, let's see what your true form is. The mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect had long realized that Night Spirit was not human. Before his sentence was finished, he had already attacked. The mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect stood on the clouds and looked down at Night Spirit with a sharp gaze. Suddenly, he reached out and grabbed Night Spirit through the void. Dharmic powers gathered towards the palm of the mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect, as though they were sucked in by a tremendous suction force. Instantly, a dharmic power palm that blanketed the skies grabbed towards Night Spirit. That palm sealed almost all of Night Spirit's available space to dodge. Night Spirit narrowed his gaze and raised his fists as well. He charged into the air and punched fiercely against the incoming dharmic power palm. Boom! The two collided with a loud bang. Night Spirit's body fell to the ground, creating a huge pit. However, he flipped over and stood up quickly without suffering any actual injuries. What? He took a conjoint body mighty figure head-on but he's completely unharmed. What's the background of that beast? The crowd was in an uproar. Most of the time, Night Spirit would make use of stealthy movement techniques to kill in secret. He was merely used to using the simplest and easiest methods to take down his opponents. However, that did not mean that he was weak. Hit! Right then, the mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect hollered softly. The moment Night Spirit landed on the ground, a thin silver light appeared from the dust beneath his feet and coiled around his body like a spirit snake. Demon suppressing rope. Furthermore, it was a mighty figure dharmic weapon. Night Spirit's blood chi surged and released a terrifying power, wanting to break free from the demon-suppressing rope. A bedazzling light shone on the demon-suppressing rope and dharmic powers surged. The moment Night Spirit forced out a sliver of space, he was constrained by the demon-suppressing rope once again. His legs were completely locked and he could not budge at all. Even Night Spirit could not break free from a mighty figure dharmic weapon easily. This mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect had fought countless battles and had many sinister methods. He had long set up a trap on the ground and was waiting for Night Spirit to jump in. Roar! Night Spirit's eyes flashed with coldness as he narrowed his gaze at the mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect in midair, and let out a shuddering roar. The demon-suppressing rope might not be able to truly trap him. If he were to reveal his true form, there was a high chance he could break free from the power of the demon-suppressing rope. However, the only way for him to reveal his true form in front of everyone was if he were to kill all living beings in the vicinity. Otherwise, his life would be in danger. Those races would definitely not let him grow. The mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect withdrew a long whip from his storage bag and whipped Night Spirit, shouting, "Bastard, how dare you shout at me!" Killing intent surged in Night Spirit's eyes. He had never suffered such humiliation. Night Spirit! Monkey and the others roared as well when they saw that. However, Night Spirit was trapped and their situation changed drastically as well. They were surrounded by the remaining Dharma characteristic Tao Lords and could not escape. Boom! Suddenly, a violent quake broke out in Pingyang town. A terrifying aura surged into the skies, connecting the world. As though they were drawn in by something, the dharmic powers in the world surged towards Pingyang town, forming a gigantic vortex. Even the auspicious cloud beneath the feet of the mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect was almost sucked away. Chapter 1225. Entering the Dharma Characteristic Realm. Chapter 1225. Entering the Dharma Characteristic Realm. All the cultivators looked at Pingyang Town with widened eyes in disbelief. Could it be? Desolate Marshal broke through. That's impossible. Desolate Marshal is in his twilight years and is on the brink of death. How can he still have the energy to step into the Dharma Characteristic Realm? The crowd was in an uproar. Even though they were seeing it personally, the cultivators were unwilling to believe it. Their group had mobilized a large force to come and fight for Desolate Marshal's inheritance. If Desolate Marshal broke through and entered the Dharma Characteristic Realm, his lifespan would increase to 10,000 years and it would mean that he was no longer in danger of dying. If Desolate Marshal was in his peak condition, who would dare lay a hand on his belongings? What was even more terrifying was that there were too few cultivators in the North region who could suppress Desolate Marshal now that he was at the Dharma Characteristic Realm. The impact on the North region was unimaginable. It did not matter if everyone believed it or not. In the skies of Pingyang Town, the gigantic vortex was getting bigger and its color was turning black, as though it was dyed with ink. The vortex was extremely domineering and absorbed the dharmic powers of the world continuously. Not only that, even the dharmic powers within the bodies of cultivators 5 kilometers away surged and seeped out, wanting to be devoured by the gigantic black vortex. Impossible. Tao Lord Fei Ming of Dragon Tiger Sect shook his head repeatedly with a shocked expression. The reason why the 100-odd Dharma characteristic Tao Lords dared to come to Pingyang Town was because Desolate Marshal was in his twilight years and his blood chi was weak. If Desolate Marshal was at the Dharma characteristic realm, none of them would be a match for him. What are you panicking for? The conjoint body mighty figure of Dragon Tiger Sect hollered, with me guarding this place, it won't matter even if that lad, Desolate Marshal, enters the Dharma characteristic realm. This conjoint body mighty figure of Dragon Tiger Sect was a grand elder of the sect. He was in seclusion all year round and had never heard of Desolate Marshal. Elder, you understand. Tao Lord Fei Ming gulped and said in shock, that Desolate Marshal already condensed a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic when he was at the void reversion realm. What? The conjoint body mighty figure of Dragon Tiger Sect frowned and exclaimed. He had lived for more than 10,000 years and even with his experience, he had never heard of such a situation. Tao Lord Fei Ming continued, furthermore, his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic is 80 feet tall. He could condense an 80 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic at the void reversion realm. Bullshit. The mighty figure of Dragon Tiger Sect who was initially skeptical could not help but berate angrily when he heard that. Tao Lord Fei Ming said, Elder, ever since Desolate Marshal started cultivating, he has never tasted defeat and has many trump cards that can kill opponents above his level. I'm talking about a major cultivation realm difference. The mighty figure of Dragon Tiger Sect was even more unconvinced. Enraged, he said coldly, why? You mean to say that this lad can kill me the moment he enters the Dharma characteristic realm? No, that's not what I meant. Tao Lord Fei Ming explained hurriedly. I just want you to be careful, Elder. It's nothing much. Humph. The mighty figure of Dragon Tiger Sect sneered and berated. I'll let you guys know today that the difference between the Dharma characteristic and conjoint body realm is not something you can imagine. Even if that lad can conjure a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that's 80 feet tall, I'll be able to shatter it with my mere body. Conjoint body was the fusion of the physical body and heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. Upon entering the conjoint body realm, every single action of his contained the power of heaven and earth and the might of the universe. At that moment, the black vortex above Pingyang Town was getting larger and larger, as if it was connecting heaven and earth. What's that? Some cultivators pointed at the gigantic black vortex with trembling voices. Within the black vortex, a figure could be seen faintly. Initially, it was a little blurry, but as time passed, it became increasingly clear. The tall figure was clad in black armor and was shrouded in fiend chi, unexcelled in the world. He wielded a gigantic black scythe that was chilling. It's Desolate Marshal's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. That's right, this heavenly fiend Dharma body defeated Tao Lord Shen Yu. A wave of shock and astonishment could be heard from the crowd. The tall figure remained motionless within the black vortex, and his figure rose continuously. 10 feet. 30 feet. 50 feet. 80 feet. Before long, the heavenly fiend Dharma body rose to a height of 80 feet. However, that trend did not stop. Once a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was 80 feet, every single increase thereafter was exceedingly difficult. But now, in the blink of an eye, the heavenly fiend Dharma body had already climbed to a height of 85 feet. At that moment, the cultivators of Dark Ghost Sect, Seven Kills Sect, Blood Mist Sect, Yuan Clan and other major sects and factions were silent with pale faces. The fact that his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was 85 feet tall right after he entered the Dharma characteristic realm was unimaginable. Even in the Golden Ancient Era, there was probably no human paragon that could reach such a height. As one's cultivation advanced, their heaven and earth Dharma characteristic would also strengthen. He was already able to condense a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that was 85 feet tall at the early stage Dharma characteristic realm. If he were to cultivate to the perfected Dharma characteristic realm, there was a high chance that this heaven and earth Dharma characteristic would become a 90 feet tall supreme Dharma characteristic. The expression of the mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect turned extremely terrible as well. Under normal circumstances, conjoint body mighty figures could indeed suppress Dharma characteristic Tao lords with ease. However, a Dharma characteristic's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic at this stage could definitely go against a conjoint body mighty figure. In the black vortex, the heavenly fiend Dharma body stood upright with a black scythe in his hands. Two cold beams of light shone from his eyes as he looked down at the world with a torrential aura. In the face of this heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, other Dharma characteristics were insignificant like ants beneath its feet. Even the aura of the mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect was disadvantaged against the 85 feet tall heavenly fiend Dharma body. All of a sudden, the heavenly fiend Dharma body moved. With that step, it strode right out of Pingyang town. Instantly, the ground shook and the weather changed. Old man, die! The heavenly fiend Dharma body let out a shuddering roar. Immediately after, the heavenly fiend Dharma body raised its arm and the scythe drew a perfect black arc in midair, slicing the void into two as it slashed towards the mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect. Ah! The mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect did not dare to be careless. He threw away the whip in his hands and took out a steel truncheon from his storage bag, smashing it fiercely towards the black scythe. Boom! The two weapons collided with a loud bang. The mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect shuddered and a shocked expression appeared on his face. He fell and opened his mouth, spitting out a mouthful of blood. The heavenly fiend Dharma body was one of the strongest Dharma characteristics of the fiend sections. A height of 85 feet was not something an ordinary conjoint body mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect could defend against. Endless fiend chi coiled towards the mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect like pitch-black anacondas. In that moment of life and death, the mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect risked his life and channeled his blood chi with all his might, summoning many talismans and dermic weapons to defend against the corrosion of the fiend chi. Without the dermic powers of the mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect supporting it, the demon-suppressing rope could no longer restrain Night Spirit. Nobody noticed that Night Spirit had already vanished, leaving nothing but a pile of broken ropes with a dim glow. Just as the mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect was trying his best to defend against the attack of the heavenly fiend Dharma body, a phantom-like figure flashed beside him and fused into the pitch-black fiend chi, almost invisible. A palm appeared above the head of the mighty figure of Dragon Tiger sect. The fingers were sharp and pierced his head. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.